Apologies for absence from councillors Cathy Ball, Kim Cook, and Caroline Page. Are there any other apologies?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also from Councillor Cathy Ball.
Okay, fine. Agenda item number 4, declarations of interest and dispensations. Do councillors have any interests to declare? Yes, no, fine, thank you. We go on please to agenda item number 5. This is the minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of February 2014. It is the wish of members that I sign these minutes as a correct record. Thank you. Now, before we move on to public questions, because it's a long and busy agenda, I decided to enforce the rules about timing. The bell will ring 30 seconds before a speaker is due to complete. I would be grateful if they take an opportunity to wind up their points and finish off their particular contribution. Number 6 is public questions. There have been 3 public questions received from the public. A copy of the questions and responses have been made available in the King chamber. I will remind councillors that under our new procedures, the initial question and response will not be read out. They will be reported as being part of the minutes of the meeting. Each of the questions will receive a written response in advance of the meeting. Ms. Basham, Ms. Every, Ms. Maynard. And in fact, first will ask Ms. Basham if she wants to come forward to ask a supplementary question. Welcome, Ms. Basham. I think you've already got a copy of the response from councillors and chambers. Would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Hello? Hello?
It's not working.
It's not working.
Susan?
Thank you.
My mic isn't working.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to ask a supplementary. I very much regret Councillor Chambers' reply, and it absolutely does not answer my question, which was what assessment of impact has Suffolk County Council undertaken on the impact of the funding formula on small schools, i.e. less than 200 pupils, and how it has consulted with local people. Given that Councillor Chambers refers to extensive financial modelling in her responding statement, can I please ask how these financial models are open to local public scrutiny in order that they may undertake their own assessment of the impact on small schools?
Thank you. Councillor Chambers, do you want to respond?
Thank you, Chair. I think the response that was given was very clear in terms of the communication and the work that was gone on through the schools forum. And as far as I'm aware, those minutes will be available for people to view. So the work has taken place, and the schools forum, as it says in my answer, is made up of head teachers, governors, dioceses, authorities, and other key stakeholders.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Thank you, Ms. Basham. Ms. Every, I think you're next. Your second question.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Just to put you in the picture, I'm Malcolm Every. I was Chairman of Governors some 18 years ago at Monks Ely School, and I've only moved on to become a governor at Stoke-by-Nayland School for 15 years. I've lived in the village, Monks Ely, for 20 odd years, and my 3 children have been through the system of Monks Ely School. So thank you for your response. And my supplementary question is, in the Council's response to the original question, they have chosen what to include very carefully and selectively. They have thereby exonerated themselves from all blame in the demise of Monks Ely Primary School and blamed everyone but themselves. Sadly, the way they try to describe their behaviour is at odds with that lambasted in their own Ofsted report. and what is evident to those who have investigated the facts in the Monks Ely saga. Despite the grand words issued to the press, the Council is still in denial about the adverse effects it has had and continues to have on the county schools. Will the county please list all of those things it got wrong itself in the events that took Monks Ely from an Ofsted good with a small but vibrant pupil number to closure in such a short space of time?
Yes, thank you, sir. Councillor James,
thank you for that. I don't necessarily agree with your view of that. I think we have made every effort to put a full response to you regarding the process that has taken place. We are due to meet on the 25th, I think it's Tuesday. I would be more than happy to go through with you again, step by step, the process that we have taken. There is a very clear process laid down, and we have made every effort to support the city school. I have been in constant communication with the local member, Councillor Anfield, over this matter. I'm more than happy that we have a full discussion on the 25th of the event.
thank you, Councillor James. Supplementary from Mrs. Maynard. Mrs. Maynard, just want to come forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm a resident of Monks Ely and have been for some years. I was a deputy head and head in primary schools for quite a long time as well. And I'm here to fight for my primary school and the village, the rural community, and also other rural schools which we feel are under threat at the moment. Despite the figures quoted in your reply, some parents were informed that the schools of their choice in the same Thomas Gainsborough catchment area as Monks Ely were full. The children were accepted on appeal to Suffolk County Council, which has led to some very large class sizes. Whilst this is a cheap option, do you consider that a mixed-year class of 37 is acceptable or unacceptable?
Thank you, Ms. Maynard, for some which question. Councillor James, will respond.
I don't have figures of the previous commission process at hand here, so I don't think it is fair that I comment on that specifically. In terms of mixed classes, there are many primary schools, as you will know, being mixed head teacher, that have mixed classes and are very successful. In terms of the process that we're going through, while it is very sad that we will see the demise of a local primary school, I reiterate the commitment that I absolutely believe in 100%, is that we must ensure that all schools are good and outstanding for our children, and that every child has access to a good and outstanding teacher.
Am I allowed to reply again?
I'm afraid not. If you can put in your response to like your question, my letter if you like, I please do so. Awesome. Can I thank the members of the public for their questions, and I'll move you on to agenda item number 7, which is the cabinet members' reports and questions. And I'll ask the questions to be short, quick as possible, a big agenda thing. 18 questions have been received from county councillors. I will take them in the order which they have been received in this. The first question is question 1 from Mark Ereira, County Councillor Allowances. Councillor Ereira.
Thank you, Chairman. Does the cabinet member have any independently verifiable evidence that Suffolk Circle, which received 3 years of new council funding, despite considerable reductions elsewhere in council budgets, has provided value for money to the council taxpayer and positive outcomes to Suffolk's more vulnerable communities, in line with the original projections, work plan, as agreed with the Cabinet in 2009?
Councillor Ereira. Councillor Allowances.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cabinet discussed and agreed at the meeting on the 25th of May 2010 to endorse the county manager's support for the development of Suffolk Circle Community funding and the business development financial plan that they put forward. The decision was based on 2 key factors: the changing demographics of people in Suffolk, and in particular, the increasing proportion of relatively elderly living alone, predominantly women, and research highlights that social isolation is a key factor in determining deteriorating health in later years. It is sought to capitalise on the potential of the enormous contribution of older people make to communities, the economy, and society as a whole. The investment in Suffolk Circle was not grant funding, but a seed funding arrangement tailing off over 3 years. It sought to access to a particular cohort of residents, develop and retain social and community networks into old age. Circle has had a real impact. 2,000 members. It supported more than 10,000 contacts, friendships, and working opportunities across the membership, and reached 1,400 learning events. They also developed some 200 members who were providing support in a number of different ways to others in their local communities. I was able to its membership recruit drives and talk to residents about their benefits, my own vision in Ipswich. And the project's financial viability has been under review by the project steering board for some time, as it proved impossible to reach financial sustainability. Circle took its official place. Continued support to Circle members uppermost in my mind, I haven't member for Ereira-Guyer, in the form of an agreement with Age Suffolk is being achieved in order not to lose the substantial benefits of the investment and continuity of support for our Suffolk residents. Now, in terms of the report, we provide facts and figures of how effective Suffolk Circle has been. I feel is somewhat premature. The impact of this work of this sort is not seen in the short term. It's a long-term gain, and our cohort does not itself be subject to scientific study. But the recent longitudinal study process at University College, supported by a number of government partners, has found most definitely that social isolation of all people is associated with increased risk of death from any cause. This relationship is independent of demographic factors. We will not see the benefits of Circle's work or that of Age Suffolk's work or any of the other community groups that are emerging and developing across the county for some years. But we expect the impact of this
Supplementary, Councillor Griffin.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Murray, for the considered response to that. I think we all regret the closure of Suffolk Circle. But would you not agree with me that to underpin learning, and we are a learning council and we want to learn from experience, that an external audit be carried out to examine the procurement, management and delivery of outputs and outcomes, and the use of £680,000 of council taxpayers' money, and present that report to the scrutiny committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we do have an audit and scrutiny within this council. I'm sure they will be more than happy to take part and advise me. Having said that, Suffolk Circle is not misappropriating economic environment alone. A recent survey of some 50 companies in the sector describing in tough times for the voluntary social enterprises. 2/3 of those are needed in excess of 100,000. They're more than 100,000 to maintain their services. Over half considering reducing these services. 10% raising closure.
Yeah.
A third had no idea how to raise extra funds. Half had resources to assist in income generation. A quarter, less than a quarter using the impact.
Councillor Perry, please. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. View the guidance issued by the Cabinet Office to all government departments this winter. They should stop using higher rated phone lines as the contact numbers of key services. What plans does Suffolk County Council to scrap this area of all records? Councillor Quick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Mr. Edmonds for that question. I agree with David Cameron, no surprise there, on this. I want to see these numbers scrapped for people in the county council wherever possible. The current contact numbers are part of the CSD contract, which comes to an end in June. As part of the preparations for moving back office services back in-house, these numbers are being reviewed, and I hope that as we roll them through, and make a definite announcement in the next few months as to how that will progress.
This is excellent news. I think it might merge the old geographical numbers. The higher rate premium numbers penalise people on non-BT lines and from mobile lines. And as you all know, Councillor Dean, I've been campaigning on this with one of my local residents, Mr. John Hollis' stepmom Claire. It took the time to ring the council and to time the call to pay a bill. It took 28p to get through to speak to anybody, which he thought was a bit rich. But he'll be very pleased to hear that we're going to go back through geographical numbers. Will you make a clear campaign to advertise and promote new numbers of the please?
Councillor B.
Thank you very much indeed. Please do reassure your constituents and all your constituents about this. As I said in my original answer, we will be rolling these out and this is important properly so that we can advertise the new correct number until the old number. Thank you very much.
Councillor Julian Flood, your next question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dealing with a pothole in the road requires a prompt response and the actual process of repair, which is filling the hole with stuff. Is Councillor Newman satisfied with the performance of Kier MG in either of these activities?
Councillor Newman.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to Council for giving this opportunity to explain. There are clear standards for repairs of potholes in this county. They're set out in our Highways Operational Plan, and they're published on the County Council's website. This sets out the intervention levels and the time for repair, 5 to 24 hours or 2 weeks, depending on the size of the hole and the importance of the road. Very wet winds has created difficulty in both the number of potholes appearing and getting lasting repairs in sustained wet conditions. Suffolk County Council and Kier MG are working closely to deal quickly with the after effects of the winter, with additional resources being deployed. Repairs having to be completed in short time scales, many temporary repairs have had to be made, and the constant wet weather has meant that many of these have not been as long lasting as I would have wanted. Specialist materials which are more tolerant of being laid in very wet conditions with high water table, and we are working with Kier MG to ensure that they are used in the future when needed. We continue to monitor the performance of the contract closely to ensure our standards are met.
Councillor Flood, does that answer your question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does this mean that Councillor Newman will ensure that potholes will no longer be filled, as recently occurred in County Western, with what looks like 2 pounds of nutty slag, half a pound of wallpaper paste, tipped in from a bucket?
Just to note that Councillor Flood draws our attention to the village of County Western, 30 miles away from the division he represents. Still, we won't go there. What I will tell you is this, more seriously, the Director and the Assistant Director for Roads and Transport and myself are working very closely with the contractor to ensure that we get improved responses to these sorts of situations as the contract develops.
Next question is from Councillor Penny Osmond and Councillor Lisa James. Councillor Osmond.
Thank you very much. Research Australia on the state of education states Suffolk County Council have been ineffective in the way it supports schools. Yet the administration has cut funding to the Learning and Improvement Service.
Yeah.
How can you justify
Mr. Chairman, the reductions in the list budget will have no impact on the Council's ability to support schools in difficulties and improve standards within Suffolk schools. Savings will come from 2 areas of the list budget which are related to this work. It clearly is necessary to redesign the way that list operates to be more effective in driving our standards. We are doing this by stopping work that has non-statutory nature, strengthening the pace of impact of our intervention, and developing the learning partnership to strengthen the best practice. We are using our new investment of nearly £4 million to achieve this transformation, and we are changing the way that we have done work in the past. It must be remembered that the vast majority of the funds in education in Suffolk are held in the schools themselves. The total spend of the Learning Improvement Service on school support is less than £5 million, compared to the school's budget, which exceeds £380 million.
Right, Joe, supplementary question.
At the last council meeting, the decision to close Allowances primary school, I said that I fear that this will not be the last, and here we have a threat to monetary environment. The issues that I see are almost the same, i.e. delay in reacting to problems and the fact that parents therefore taking their children out of school. How long are you prepared to wait whilst even more small primary schools are at threat because they are not receiving the support that they need?
Thank you, Councillor Chambers.
I really don't think that you're listening to the answer that I gave you in the Cabinet or the answer that I gave you now. What we have before us is a redesign of the Learning Improvement Service to ensure that that service is more effective going forward. There is a significant amount of investment going in, and the budget lines that we are removing are non-statutory services.
Next question is Councillor Derek Hackett. We gratefully could ask this question the last paragraph, please.
I can do this in 1 minute, Mr. Chairman, if you'll allow me, please.
Time to ask. The question is in your last paragraph. Could you ask that?
Very well, I will go test Mr. Chairman. I'm allowed 1 minute to ask the question or tonight and that one. Will the Cabinet Body remember the joint community councils in their efforts to get a fair deal of traditional fishermen, safeguard the fishing market, and support them in their bid to create jobs?
Councillor Smith.
The local authority closest to this issue is Waverley District Council. Recently, they have been holding meetings involving the fish merchants and associated British ports who own Suffolk Port, with a view to trying to assist the relocation of the locals from their current location in the outer harbour to elsewhere in the port. Waverley District Council will soon also be engaging with the inshore fishing boat owners to establish whether they can be assisted in a similar way. Securing the operational basis for wind energy partners is considered crucial to the future economic well-being of Lowestoft. Because of the operational needs of these bases, they have to be situated in the outer harbour to facilitate 24-hour operation. In terms of fish stocks and quotas, the ability of this county council to influence any outcome is severely restricted by European and UK quota policies.
Councillor Hackett, supplementary question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Greater Gabon wind farms use £129 million in this fuel subsidy, costing the energy consumer £1.3 million for every job created in Lowestoft. Fishing fleet expansion is free because it creates all of us. Thus, councillors to agree that the creation of fishing docks for local people should be actively encouraged by this administration rather than importing people to build an integrated system.
Councillor Smith, response.
As councillors will know, I'm a Lowestoft man born and bred, and I come from a fishing family. In fact, I have an uncle who is still alive, who used to be a trawlerman on the Boston trawler fleet. So I'm well aware of the importance that fishing used to play in Lowestoft. I regret to say used to, because it is of a minuscule scale now compared to what it was when I was a boy. I would like to see the fishing industry expand, but we must be realistic. The way forward these days is with offshore energy projects. We have potentially the largest offshore energy field in the world of the submersible test. And we need to make the maximum opportunities that we possibly can to benefit the port of Lowestoft.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor David Nettleton is the next question. Councillor Nettleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Newman, is it your intention that West Area Highways continue to announce forthcoming road resurfacing and pavement repairs in various Edmonds by officers circulating an A4 sheet at the quarterly outplace meetings without any prior notification, discussion or consultation with the elected members for the town? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Nettleton. It remains our intention that West Area Highways will provide information on forthcoming works to share with councillors in advance of our place meetings. This is in addition to discussions between officers and individual councillors from time to time about projects or other works in their division. My colleague Councillor Stamp tells me she should be fully involved in the development of proposals for roads and paths in her Southgate division of various endeavours.
Councillor, supplementary question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All I'm seeking is parity of road resurfacing and pavement repairs at various Edmonds with Felixstowe. Am I in with a chance?
I could respond to that and say, we will have programmes, Chairman, and we will see how much difference there is in investment in those Edmonds compared with Felixstowe. I know we have had justice.
That's the next one is from Councillor Stanley Martin to Councillor Mark B. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will the Leader of the Council tell us what impact he believes the number of people taking voluntary redundancy in CST, rather than transferring into the employment of Suffolk County Council, may have on the ability of this authority to effectively run IT, human resources, etc.?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to Councillor Martin for his question. The answer is there's basically 700 staff who work in finance, HR, ICT, public access, customer first, and support to schools will be returned to the county. 33 staff had their requests for voluntary redundancy accepted. Teams have been restructured accordingly, and I don't, Mr. Chairman, anticipate any negative impact.
Supplementary question, Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is the Leader's relaxed attitude to capacity of this council to provide these services for itself explained by his intention to outsource all services previously provided by CST at some stage in their future?
Councillor Baker.
Mr. Chairman, we will need to look at these by case basis. But I think what this administration, and I believe this council is best required to do, is to look at our divestment programme. And by our divestment programme, we will see a smaller and less complicated council, reducing the size and the complexity of our back office. And if that means that these are outsourced, then of course we will look at merit of that. But we must look at these things on a case basis, rather than seeing to be a one-size-fits-all, which of course I'm sure will be convenient for political borrowings from the opposition front bench.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Gardner, please, your question, of course, is to Councillor Colin Spence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will the Cabinet and Public Protection Trust believe in Suffolk are best served by this contact control room in Suffolk, or whether we would benefit from having it moved to
Right, Councillor Spencer.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Gardner, for your question. Now, clearly, the decision on the future of Suffolk's Police Patrol Service is one to be made by the Police and Crime Commissioner. He has to make that. It's not for me, as the County Council, the Cabinet Member for Public Protection, to engage myself in that decision. At this moment in time, I'm not aware of the full details of the proposals, although I am conscious that the ECC has just earlier this week launched a detailed public consultation exercise, which I'm sure will include all stakeholders. When asked and provided with more detail about the proposal and the business case, I will be in a much better and informed position to make a response. I do, however, have every confidence that the PCC will act in the very best interests and security of the people of Suffolk and the community.
Councillor Gardner,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In view of that, in view of the information that we have today, which I'm sure will be announced, will this administration be calling on the business Department Commissioner for Suffolk should reject any proposals to move Suffolk Police Control Room to Norfolk.
Chairman, yes, I think I should make it quite clear that whilst there is much information in the media about this, I would not expect this House to expect me to respond to a really serious issue like this, what I might have one in the media. Great respect, however, these are issues. As I've said already, when we receive a full consultation from the Business Commissioner, we will give it very detailed consideration. But just haven't got that from the position.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Smith. Next question is County Councillor Len Jack, to Councillor Alan Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given that only 14% of about 150 people of the 115,000 that joined Suffolk Circle by November 2012 were estimated to be in serious need, would the Cabinet Member for Health and Health Care now be willing to commit £680,000 of Suffolk County Council's taxpayers' money to subsidise the Suffolk Circle for further 3 years?
Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Mr. Jackson, it refers to a scrutiny committee requesting post-COVID analysis by public legal members to rise to the subject of satisfying residential neighbourhoods. But, because it's the essential point, Suffolk Circle was not a service and was never intended to be a service. The universal service is established to support people from every community to remain independent and active as long as possible, not necessarily to wait for the tasks of the immediate area, especially on Christmas. And the work carried out by Suffolk Circle has helped people overcome some significant issues such as low isolation. Estimated 15% of 50 to 60-year-olds this increases to 23%. Worrying present. At the time, the Circle was required to support a microphone service to not therefore, seeing the challenges we will face in the future, we took a bold step to try something different, another way to support people who suffer, to develop a service that better the needs of Suffolk. We have learned a lot as we go forward to maximise the welfare services and support within both the government and the community sector as part of our supporting our connected community. So, would we consider investing in similar services in the future? I must make it clear, there was never any intention to subsidise Suffolk Circle for 3 years. We of course work with the market that is increasingly more attuned to the types of services specifically the requirements of the law care support. Invest around £3 million a year with voluntary groups. Of course, we are and will continue to develop these groups to take services for the individuals.
Thank you. Some questions?
I'm not sure I actually don't answer the question that we would be willing to do. Subsidising it. However, I'll assume that you would because you've learned your lesson. In which case, do you believe that the Cabinet Member who committed that sum to supporting a private company in the first place, and who assured us in November 2012 that this company would continue to work for years after the subsidy ceased, should now be in charge of the finances of the council? My role as Cabinet Member is to look after the adult social care needs of some of the adult individuals. What's gone in the past is, of course, relevant just on the features more relevant if there are items that the Council Jackson wishes to bring to either audit industry, then that's fine. I'm more happy to do that.
Next question is from Councillor Sandra Gage to Councillor Cranfield.
In this case, is intended to remove the pension to vehicles and pedestrians on line or bypass roads where the pedestrian route is harmed. However, the A144 Public Town Centre will continue funding North Stanford Road, how does the Cabinet Member think this scheme provides improved pedestrian access and safety?
Right, Councillor Newman. Sure, I can answer that question.
Thank you, Chairman, and indeed thanks to Councillor Gage for Mr. Chairman, this question is just slightly wrong. The Portal Funding Town Centre Improvement Scheme, although it utilises shared space concepts, it's not designed as a shared space scheme. Design allows space being available by making St Mary Street one way. Why is the footpath providing an improvement design this scheme, including consultation with the public, whether it's school buses, and the use of the guidelines for design. The scheme is also recently received the support of funding in a parish hall. The improved scheme includes raised tables to enforce the 20 mile per hour speed limit, using tactile paving and different materials to define the curb line and bollards. 2 courtesy crossings have been introduced, and the length of each crossing, the length of crossing at each location has been significantly reduced. Driver behaviour is influenced by their environment. This scheme will be a low speed with wide footpaths to support pedestrian movements. As an additional safeguard, we retain the infrastructure to change the courtesy crossings into formal crossings at a later date, should that prove necessary. But I'd like to assure the Chamber the scheme went through a safety report started, and the final scheme will also make further safety report.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive answer. Councillor Gage, your response to that supplementary question?
I don't disagree with some of what you're saying, Councillor Newman. However, the concept of the scheme, you may not call it shared space, very much the shape of it, the look of it, the feel of it is in the theory of shared space, and pedestrians will be unsure as to where they can cross. So my question to you remains, with such a scheme on an A road, which is a through route, is it not actually increasing the risk to pedestrians and bringing the whole concept of a shared or a more integrated use of space by pedestrians and vehicles into disrepute?
You will respond.
Yes, I will, Mr. Chairman, because I've just said in my response, the possible points which are demarked on the highway by these different coloured paving blocks are very clear, and they are narrow points on the road. And the whole environment is designed to slow everybody down. And that is the case because the response scheme is being designed recognizing that the A124 is still a main road and does carry traffic.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Adams, can Councillor Mark give your question?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor B, is the Suffolk County Council prepared to sign the inclusive and fair charter?
Please, John Scott.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman. Thank you also to Councillor Adams for your question. The answer is that as with such proposals, any such proposals like this, it is something that we should take to and have consideration on. We start a partnership. Very happy with if the matter isn't available, and step forward, it can then have rules because all this should be discussed on the meeting with the trade union.
Your response? Any supplementary question?
Just very quickly, I'm very pleased to hear that, and I'm hoping that everybody in this chamber has supported it, since it is traditional, correct, and supported for everyone else. Also, for all their minds, we should go on
I'm very happy to respond, even though it wasn't a question, but I'm very happy to respond. And I think that if Councillor Adams wants to see this discussed, there are, which you talked to the Secretary Graham White, contact, or indeed Councillor Martin, who in fact sits in on that partnership.
Thank you so much. Councillor Allowances, sort of questions. Councillor Allowances.
Following the long list of complaints, there's the proposal of this care and distribution. How can tell us what is the average number of complaints per
itself. They come from relatives, residents, staff, agencies concerned with care. They're not in the public domain rightly so, and they're not necessarily uniform shared with Suffolk Council. We are not, as a commissioner, we do have a supervisory role, but also sometimes as a closure aggregating keeper, not automatically part of the information requirement. Now, Suffolk County Council has a duty of care of residents placing a record with those at care, but also with other funding arrangements. We take very seriously exercise our responsibility swiftly and carefully under a variety of circumstances. Where necessary, we will source new accommodation for very short minutes and offer safe and speedy and smooth transfer, minimizing distress to the residents and families. Now, regarding the detail of the project, it is not appropriate nor expected to comment on individual care facilities and the individuals only running might or not subject to current activities involved with their and the police. Now, there are 143 registered care homes in the area. So, according to the statute, 45 of which are care homes. Now, when we receive your question, we invite you to get on the commission report. Answer on your behalf all the details. Yes, I'm sorry, one of you
I think that if they ask the question, you respond. Have your response to that?
I think it's a difficult position regarding fair deals. I'd rather not find that there are but yes, I think we would be happy to meet with the corporation on a regular basis, safeguarding things to do. We have our own database of letters to provide reports, so we coordinate the care quality division, inspector findings, quality and improvement teams and ambassadors are active all the time. So yes, we're aware of what's going on. We're happy to coordinate care quality division activity involved with the
Thank you very much. Next question is Councillor Defiance, Councillor James. Councillor Defiance.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor James. What measures will the County Council be taking to help IES replicate England's teaching and learning to ensure children at school receive the best possible education?
Thank you, Councillor James.
Mr. Chairman, the IES curriculum in preschool is outside the control of the local authority. The sponsor of the school is responsible for reviewing outcomes and addressing performance issues at the school, and it is funded to do so. As with other state-funded schools that are outside the control of the council, I will be working directly with the Department of Education to ensure that the children who attend the school receive an improved level of education.
Thank you. Have someone have any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your answer. Yes, I do appreciate the fact that it's outside control. But bearing in mind, some of us still have responsibility for educational standards. It's really important because I'm losing track of that. So given that IES is even further removed from responsibilities of authority than academies, what measures can the authority realistically put in place? Not just to wait for things to go on, wait for us to come in. What can we do to preclude, to take proactive measures to make sure that those pupils in those schools, preschools, academies in this county, are getting the education they deserve? Thank you.
Absolutely, totally agree with you. child in this county, regardless of whether they're at a preschool, academy, or a local school, achieve the very best education. I will continue to work with the Department of Education and Ofsted, as I've already said, and we do have the powers to ask Ofsted to do an inspection of any school of concern, and we do have powers to report any school of concern to the Department of Education. We do that, and we will continue to do that. If what a free school or academy would indeed like to purchase or learn and recruit service offer from us, they are perfectly entitled to do that, because in fact some academies do purchase that service from us already. We'd be happy to negotiate with Reckitt if they wish to put us in to support going forward. The offer is there, and we would be more than happy to help. I would also like to draw Council's attention to the fact that within the recent Ofsted letter that we received, they did actually mark how well and how strong, what a strong track record is at helping schools that are in category, and how swiftly we move schools from being in category out of category. So it is acknowledged that obviously within Ofsted we are able to give that assurance and improve.
Next question is from Councillor Lockington to Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. Could the Cabinet member give us an update on how Suffolk social care are getting on with the assessment and rollout of trust budget for carers, including the adult budget allocated to carers for home-based respite service?
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Suffolk County Council's personal budget for family care services around 2010. There was not currently statutory requirements, so we're coming the care bill will come requirement for the carers assessment and access to care budgets. And we recognise, I said this in the huge previous meeting, I said this at 1,000 for family care services. And from April last year to March 2014, Suffolk County Council has delivered enhanced carers budgets to 808 carers, and average more than 549,000. In addition, grants to Suffolk County Carers and Trust have enabled another 1,518 supported through a process budget, total budget of another 400 county carers previously supported by the contract being transferred to the personal budget, which was at the end of the period of the year, 2,800 family carers in Suffolk receiving personal budget, total cost of
Thank you, Chairman. The portfolio assure me that carers are not worse off under the new budget than they were, so they get enough time off and about the same amount as they had on the old system.
Thank you. I'm sure I'm more inclined to report this specific answer. I have to say that anything I can support
Next question is Councillor Carol.
Thank you, Chairman. There is a perception among a number of businesses in behavioural industrial areas that the County Council will be cheap on prioritising rural areas rather than urban industrial areas in the rollout of high-speed broadband. Could the Regional Council explain these existing impacts?
Thank you very much indeed. And I'm almost not allowed to get through a meeting without mentioning broadband. Thank you, Councillor Garland, for allowing me the opportunity for that. I'm very happy to reassure Councillor Garland that businesses in Haverhill, but this is not the case. Ironically, as we've heard from around the chamber, we often get the feedback that the rural areas tend to be favoured of urban areas. And if you look at the feedback is that rural areas the enterprise revenue in Lowestoft, for example, you have 5 capital plan, which will mean one company in particular will go from 3 megawatts per second to 330 megawatts per second, which will have a fantastic opportunity for that company, employability for that company, where that company can be in the marketplace. But our deployment is actually designed to maximise the number of premises on all types, urban as well as rural. We reach under the current funding, and this certainly includes the industrial estates that I mentioned. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Smith. Councillor, question, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The Haythorpe Chamber of Commerce, having formerly the George Road Industrial Area, has an housing plan, which they would like to be concerned about. And they need to ensure I get information to give me a timeline of provision of this particular area.
Okay, Smith.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman. We're currently making very good progress on the rollout of our plan, going into plan, and it's based on the most up-to-date technical information we have. We're ensuring the rollout of the network is the most logical way in which we can do it. We've also recently been able to get and be bid for additional government money, which is meant that additional money will mean we can push our initial provision of reaching 90% to 95% by Suffolk. Now, the area that Councillor Dow actually mentioned is we hope to be able to have an announcement once we have that funding in place in July.
Next question is to Councillor Brian Rutkin to Councillor Lisa James.
It's a Conservative Group united on an issue as they go in Ipswich. Right. Councillor James, can the private group not explain it? Can the Cabinet member give us an update on the actions taken on each of the 10 areas identified as needing improvement in the Ofsted inspection of child protection undertaken in June 2013?
You'll be aware Ofsted judged the Council's safeguarding services is adequate. Of the 7 other local authorities who are in the same statistical neighbourhood group as Suffolk, 4 were judged as inadequate and 3 adequate. Nationally, as I'm sure you're aware, of all the authorities inspected in 2013, only 1 received a grading good. There are, in fact, a total of 16 areas for improvement identified. Following the inspection report in July 2013, an action plan was put in place addressing areas identified as requiring improvement. The action plan was driven forward by a group chaired by the Service Director and progress of this is overseen by DMT. The plan is also subject to scrutiny by the local Safeguarding Children's Board, and the last report was presented to the Safeguarding Board on 6th of March this year. All areas are identified are being addressed. I can go into detail, but I should do it right now. But I'm very happy to dig in here and go through each single 60 points.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Rutkin. Supplementary question?
Thank you very much. Can you tell me what measures are being put in place to ensure that whilst quite rightly correctly attention is being placed on Suffolk's education service, that the very vital service of child protection, which perhaps doesn't really necessarily make the headlines unless something goes very wrong suddenly, is not being forgotten whilst attention is being put on schools?
I absolutely refuse that debate. The question, claim, comment, whatever you want to say, I absolutely refute it. I am as committed to children's services and safeguarding as I am education. I sit on the local safeguarding board. I monitor the reports from my own cabinet briefings, and your comments are absolutely not. It was a
Oh, down there.
Lieutenant Craig, are you able to ask your questions? Do you want 5 minutes rest? Anyone else a question now?
Thank you, Chair. Is the Cabinet member aware of any action that has been taken to ensure the community equipment contract helping Serco being properly delivered?
Councillor, sir. Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Craig. The contract of community services was led by NHS Suffolk, Europe's always recent organisation for health services east West Suffolk area. They are primarily responsible for oversight of the contract. Our social work staff, when they first started, they received problems with equipment. This is our management team groups. Particular problems in specialist orders for equipment, such as hoists and overhead provision, have been received late. They were subject to detailed examination by Suffolk Council in January this year, and also a very detailed review published also in January by the Suffolk SCC. As a result of this, a number of steps have been taken to improve delivery by Serco, the community contract held by CCPs on behalf of council's customers. Our commissioning lead for rehabilitation services now attends the CCG contract on completing the Serco to assure the community equipment service performs issues on behalf of other services. Regular reviews are also held with community equipment managers, individual cases where there have been delays, and improved internal checklists on those basis. One consequence is that the performance of special stands very significantly improved. Monthly meetings also occur with Serco senior operating managers to formal escalation requests and issues. Serco also appointed key managers as directed to deliver success. Now, I agree that not all outstanding issues need to be resolved. As a result of the above action, the situation is now beginning to improve.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Murray. Can you assure us that you're satisfied that in the future arrangement with outside contractors will be watertight, so that monitoring is carried out when there is a requirement and penalties will be provided if necessary?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. You'll be aware that the Serco contract responsibility related to the contract is CCTVs standards. I am sure that significant and informed such as to deliver the systems as we can manage.
Thank you. Final question, Councillor James Crossley. Thank you. Councillor Crossley, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Will the Cabinet member agree with me that the best way to increase the number of travellers which is in the Ipswich area is to expand the existing successful West Meadows site, which is not the only one?
Thank you. Right.
Thank you, Chair. Expand West Meadows site to accommodate additional duties and digital yards. As it stands, site itself is the largest local authority outside the UK. Makes it very likely to be room for expansion, given the area required for horses and animals in approximately A14. Furthermore, larger sites are hard to manage and not viable from the DLG and planning perspective. Supplying of kitchens within each district borough boundary falls within scope of the district accommodation needs assessment. This assessment sets out the required time kitchens on a 5-year rolling basis. Meeting the time kitchen provision is on a permanent basis, and which some of the district borough council signs. Secondly, where we're currently undertaking the process to identify how best to address the issue under the wider campus concept. Some of the companies in the sector are in agreement with the local authorities and their partners should explore together the creation of a number of short-stay working bases practices, which is a Suffolk-wide approach and not on an ad hoc basis. This will help alleviate the varying degrees of local tension and concern that exists when council rise and work currently undeveloped.
Right. Some questions? Yes, please.
As you know, this is the second proposed travel site in the White House area in my constituency. I don't see why you the second time I doubled the White House, when I would rather share it with all of them. Anyway, my point is that the Ipswich Labour Party proposed this site of my house, the second, in their local plan. But would the cabinet member agree with me that it's absolutely outrageous that they're now issuing leaflets around the White House area suggesting that they are the party fighting it in opposition to it? Thank you.
Do you want to respond to that or just leave it?
It'd be good to bring it with you, mate.
That concludes the super questions. Before we move on to the next agenda, item number 9, which is the two motions before us, I'm advised that perhaps we'll stand up, remove your tennis tickets and put them back in again. So please all stand up, take them out and put them back in again.
She's trying to get us to stand up.
Sit down now. All right, sit down now. I know what you say, but I see the RAF Wellington lads. They can cope with deserts, being attacked, famine, pestilence, but they can't cope with this. Don't wait for the order.
It is my intention to take the next motion and then after that we will break of exactly 10 minutes. So, in accordance with 3.1 of the Constitution, two motions have been received. Let's say I'll take them all they've been received, as indicated on the agenda sheet on pages 3 and 4. The first motion is proposed by Mark Ereira and seconded by Councillor Andrew Stringer. I'd be grateful if you don't read out the motions on the paper. So, Mark Ereira, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman, and I won't read out the motion in front of you. I think it's hopefully quite clear to all colleagues in the Council chamber. As colleagues will know, once a year the Green Independent Group propose a motion. We're usually voted down, I think, it'd be fair to say. I think last time we suggested 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in communities. Sort of a year later it becomes council policy. So we're hoping, because we're always ahead of the curve, we're obviously hoping that this will become a national government policy any time now, or any time soon, I should say. So we're talking about the financial transaction tax, more commonly referred to, and I like the phrase Robin Hood tax. At the last council meeting, we had a debate about the budget. I was talking about the colleagues in front of us being addicted to austerity, and arguing actually we should do something sincere about making the case to national government that we want to protect our public services. And how could that be done? How can we do that here in Suffolk? There have to be alternatives. I think we need to be offering alternatives to the people here in Suffolk. And the Greens, we do believe in solutions. And the Robin Hood tax is part of the solution to tackling the austerity that we have in front of us, and paying for action to tackle climate change, and also support those in countries experiencing the worst aspects, social, economic and environmental, of runaway climate change in terms of raising this tax. In the UK, it's believed you can raise £20 billion a year from the financial transaction tax. It is not a tax on individuals, which is something that doesn't go down very well with anybody's electorate at this current time. It's about rolling out the current tax on the purchase of shares to other financial assets, such as bonds and derivatives, at about 0.5%. The Robin Hood tax will also help encourage traditional, longer-term approaches to investment as opposed to extremely short-term, speculative behaviour that has characterised the conditions that led to the financial crisis in 2008. And we believe, and lots of people believe, that changing that sort of behaviour is necessary to create a more financial and stable financial system going forward. And colleagues, I think we know this more than anybody else, that local councils and our residents face the impact of that financial crisis and that crash. And we're now paying a very heavy price for it. And you'll know the situation on local government from the budgets that we've had to set, the cuts that we've had to make over the recent period of time. And I believe, and the Greens believe, we believe that public services have been detrimentally and disproportionately affected by the cuts that the financial crisis has imposed on us. And ordinary people should not have to pay for errors committed by reckless elements of the financial sector. And it's entirely reasonable that banks and hedge funds contribute to clear up the mess that they created. The Local Government Association, which we are a member of, has modelled the likely funding gap for local councils at £16.5 billion per year by the end of the current decade. So we've got decades, well, we've got certainly the next decade of more austerity, and we need to plug those gaps. And this could be one clear way of doing so. 11 European countries, France and Germany very much to the forefront, have sought to bring around this tax because it needs to be coordinated across, obviously, Europe and the wider world. Business figures such as Bill Gates, trade unions such as the GMB, NUT, UNIS and Unite have endorsed the Robin Hood tax, and so have 47 other local authorities, Chairman. So the simple proposition that you have in front of you, which is no cost to Suffolk County Council at all, is to write to the said people on that motion, asking that they support the introduction of the financial transaction tax. And I'll just conclude by saying, if we don't do these sorts of things for the people that we represent, what do we therefore offer to people of Suffolk from this council chamber? But another decade of austerity, shrinking the state, and then the third-rate diminished public services that none of us, I believe, really want to see. And how can we ensure that all of our residents flourish and can be actively, robustly part of resilient, inclusive and cohesive communities? Colleagues, I'd like you to get behind the Greens and get ahead of the curve and support this motion.
Can be 5 minutes? Well, congratulations. Do you have a second of your motion, please? I recognise Councillor Anderson. Do you want to speak now? Do you want to speak now?
I would like to second the motion and reserve my right to be defeated.
Okay, very good. Okay. I've got 2 proposed contributors to the debate. Are there any more who want to contribute to the debate? Yes, very good. So I propose calling in order Councillor Mark B, Councillor Annie Martin, Councillor David Edmund, and then County Councillor Andrew Street. Thank you. Councillor.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've never heard such a big alert tribunal. I think it's quite a treat that Councillor Ereira does bring this annual motion ready for slaughter, as it were. And it's only Councillor Stringer, his second, who is ahead of the curve, Mr. Chairman. It's great to see you here, Councillor Ereira. It's getting a little bit late in the day, so we're hoping that you're going to be here for the next motion and the issues following that as well. But it's really good of you to come here today and extol the virtues in the sort of best classic example of sort of sixth form debating society of the Robin Hood tax. Now, it depends how you spell Robin, really. Is it Robin or is it Robbing? Because I think the effect will be the same. And I think the contorted message that we have in the wording of this debate really does show, if I may look to my colleague here, we've got a long way to go with raising the bar, really, haven't we, with the standard of English that we have. But in all seriousness, I think that we ought to take this Robin Hood tax issue and say to Councillor Ereira, take it back to Sherwood Forest and bury it in the deepest part of the forest. Because right at the point, as we heard from the Chancellor only yesterday, that the country is coming out of recession, that we are seeing growth, and we do not sit on our laurels and think that it is anything other than the beginning of growth. At the point that we see this, Councillor Ereira wants to come along and kill it all off. Have you ever heard such nonsense? Now I can assure you that we will not be supporting this. We will not be mandating. And it's interesting that you think that the Chief Executive should be mandated on this issue and not anybody else. And that's not why she's not here today, Mr. Chairman. But I think what's interesting is that you have a proposal here with no figures, no opportunity for Suffolk County Council to really have any way of impacting anything that we have here. And really we have an opportunity for Councillor Ereira to come along, have a debate about something that even his own side, and I think even he realises, isn't even going to get off the starting blocks. So thank you very much, Councillor Ereira. Good to see you here. Thanks for all this, and we look forward to defeating this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Labour MPs and MEPs have been instrumental in making the financial transactions tax a viable proposition. The Labour frontbench team, including Edmund, have made it clear that they will work with our European partners to make the financial transactions tax possible if it is possible. The European Parliamentary Labour Party has done a lot of work in the European Parliament towards enabling the financial transactions tax. The financial transactions tax has always been a good example of the difference in approach between the Labour Party, which believes that in many cases, finance included, regulation is needed in order to prevent the worst excesses of capitalism, and the Conservative Party, which just wants government to get out of the way and let the hedge funds rip. This is a clear example of a measure which can only be sensibly introduced at least at a European level and preferably at a global level. It's not at all surprising that Councillor Ereira should choose to jump on this particular bandwagon, given that he has put himself forward for the European Parliamentary elections, albeit in a completely unwinnable position, but then being a member of the Green Party and standing for completely unwinnable positions to go hand in hand. What I think is reprehensible is that Councillor Ereira was too busy doing other things to attend the Cabinet meeting at which the reorganisation of the schools in his own division was being decided, but now he finds time to bring a motion to this chamber which has no bearing whatever on the work of this authority, instead of focusing on the vital concerns of the people who voted for him on issues such as education. So yes, Mr. Chairman, this group will vote for this motion to demonstrate our strong commitment to a financial transactions tax. But frankly, we don't think this motion needed to be brought to this council in the first place.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like every other member, I'm sure I put around lots of leaflets before last year's election, seeking to find out what my electors wanted me to do if I was successful. And I have to report that nobody mentioned to me financial transaction tax. And so therefore, and subsequently, in the last 10 months, nobody has raised that issue with me. Now this is truly a silent majority. So I have to guess that perhaps my electors think that there should be a division of labour here, that the local councillors should deal with the local issues within their area, and other matters like financial transaction tax should be passed to members of Parliament to discuss through the government, and I'm therefore not very keen to support this motion. And if my buttons work this time, as they didn't last time, I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Hey, Councillor Peter Belfield was the person catching my Peter Belfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a very brief 2 points I will make. First of all, I'm quite sure that this motion is intended to make the economic situation of this country that much worse, because financial transactions, a very substantial proportion of EU financial transactions take place in this country, and therefore we will be disadvantaged dramatically. And if just on a little personal point, to increase the cost of financial transactions means to say the cost of running a pension fund. As chair of a pension fund, it's something I have to take into account. Increase the cost of administering the pension fund if you have this tax equality. So it does actually affect every single pensioner in Suffolk County Council.
Councillor Endeavour, next speaker, please. Councillor Endeavour.
Mr. Chairman, the government's cuts, as has been suggested, are not ideologically driven at all. The government is spending 720 billion a year, but has an income of 612. 720 take away 612 billion equals a shortfall of 108 billion. The government's policies are dictated not by ideology, but by simple arithmetic. There are many forms of financial transaction tax. The proposal and seconder don't bother to tell us what we've got in mind, but if it's the FTT proposed by the European Commission, then it would raise 57 billion euro, of which Britain's share would be 10 billion euro, or 8.4 billion pounds. This would go nowhere near to tackling Britain's appalling deficit. Let us not be blind to the existence of pension funds throughout the world, which exist to provide for supplement the incomes of untold millions of people, including the employees of the very council that we serve. These funds must necessarily invest their members' monies, and I don't think, as the proposer thinks, seemingly, that these people are enriching themselves to the detriment of the many. Not at all. This capital exists for the local government of Suffolk. I respectfully suggest that we devote ourselves to this task today and let the central government get on with restoring financial integrity to our nation's affairs. We've got a lot on the agenda today, Mr. Chairman, important matters that concern the people of Suffolk. Let's get on. With this in mind, on a point of procedure, I move, in accordance with Rule of Procedure 8.3.10, sub para A, that the question now be put.
Okay. Proposal motion now be put. I'm actually going to call for votes on that before I decide on that. So, those in favour of the motion now be put. You ready? You ready? Would you please vote 2? Against 3, abstain 4. So, vote in favour of proposal motion now 2. Against 3, abstain 4. Would you now please vote? Has everybody voted? Close the ballot. On the numbers, please. In that case, then I'll call upon, is it County Councillor, is it the second that comes in next, I think? Yes, that's right. The second that comes in next, County Councillor Andrew Stringer, you're now entitled to speak. No. Entitled? No. The second that is entitled to speak. Councillor Andrew Stringer.
Thank you, Chair. What I was going, I'll sum up pretty quickly. Basically, anyone that thinks that what happened to the international banks and the financial system in 2008 didn't have effect on Suffolk, actually, frankly, is not living in the real world, or any world that I recognise. That crisis in the world has caused my community some stress, some considerable stress, actually, in terms of people's pensions, their wealth and well-being. So to think that it doesn't and it's not attached to Suffolk, frankly, is missing the point. In supporting this, I've tried to walk a mile in Councillor Noble's shoes, if indeed not a mile in his suit. I've actually got a spare one as well at the press conference. But just actually see and acknowledge all the work that the administration has done in trying to tackle with the massive shortfalls we have on the budgets that we used to have in the past. And actually commend a lot of the work that you've done. You've played quite a good hand with, you've played quite a good deck with a really bad hand at times. But there's, it gets to the point where what you want to make sure is that something like that never, ever happens again. Now, at the moment, we have a financial system that's not like bingo. It's actually based on a thumping great casino. And that casino is trading money at such an astronomical rate on such tiny margins that it really is putting the well-being of our futures at considerable risk. I hadn't quite quantified some of the risks, but I've got some friends that work in the city and they were telling me about how much the trades go at. Some of these trades are happening at about 2,000 trades per second, and they are trading on 0.1 of 0.01% at times. They're basically revved up hedge funds, and they are the most dangerous things at this rate you've ever seen in your life. He had on his trading floor something go wrong, and before they could unplug the computer, in that 4.5 seconds, his fund lost 60 million quid. Absolutely scary. And this is how we're basing our financial future. To not take some action on behalf of the people of Suffolk, in actually flagging that we think we've seen a problem, ladies and gentlemen, I think could be actually reckless. Which is why I will, on behalf of the people of Suffolk, support this motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Ereira. 350 and he's still here. Well done, sir. I'm very impressed with that. That's excellent. And I'd like to congratulate Councillor Stringer on his very smart suit. Yeah.
Cheers.
I think Councillor Leston rather made the point that what we're not talking about here is something that affects the people of Suffolk. In this chamber, we should be discussing things that we can affect. And this is not something we can affect. Therefore, the next motion and the other things we're debating, the things we can do here, and those are the things we should be focused on. I also am slightly worried about this particular motion, in as much as I've seen the press coverage, and Councillor Ereira is now Councillor Ereira and PPC for Ipswich, and that gets mentioned in the same breath, and I do rather feel that perhaps this motion is an attempt to create a certain degree of publicity more for its parliamentary ambitions than for effect here in this chamber. It says in the motion, coalition governments ideologically driven cuts, and I think Councillor Bond summed it up exactly right. It is not about ideologically driven cuts, it is about local government paying its part in the fact we have to get back to some fiscal sanity, about actually having a higher tax base than we actually spend in this country. Now, he says enrichment of the few to the detriment of the many, and I have to say, as the former PCC for Labour in Bury St Edmunds, I do feel those are coming through, and perhaps a touch-up of green paint might be in order there, because that comes across as a very, very socialist comment. Now, I think in 2008, we all saw new words enter the lexicon. We saw things like subprime, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac, and we all wondered, well, what has this got to do with us? And we also watched as people queued outside Northern Rock. And that led to the biggest crash we've had in this country. Now, Councillor Martin talks about capitalism rampant, but again, Councillor Martin, that is something that's just a convenience for you, because it is the Financial Services Authority creation that created the environment where they destroyed the power of the Bank of England under Labour. Tony Blair introduced that act. And if you go back in Hansard, you will find a speech by Peter Lilly MP, and it is almost like an oracle. Because he stood in the House of Commons and he said what he thought would happen. And that is exactly what happened. Banks were deregulated, and they were allowed to create a position of risk that when problems came, they could not survive. And it was a Labour government that deregulated, not a Conservative one. Now, the coalition does have an answer to this, and it has responded to this. it has introduced the bank levy. And the bank levy will generate some £8 billion. This year, it will raise 2.7 billion, and next year it will raise 2.9. And you have to be very clear on what that is, because what we're talking about here is the wholesale movement of banking and financial transaction activity. Now, the EC, their own commission, assessed this, and they said that if this was introduced, some 70 to 90% of applicable markets would transfer outside of the EU. And as has been said in this room, London is some 70 to 80% of all the money that would be raised in a financial transaction tax. Now, I have talked to people in the city about this, and what they say to me is I would be left with a stark choice if this was introduced. I would either have to transfer to New York or the Far East, or I would be out of job. And the reality of this stupid motion is that this would cost this country significant sums of money, and therefore I absolutely call for us to reject it wholeheartedly.
So to conclude the debate, can I ask Mark Ereira, please?
I have to say, I do take it as such a compliment when you're getting attacked like that. So I really appreciate that. Everybody always thinks I'm really political because I'm involved in politics. Yeah? I don't know. Anyway.
Are you involved in politics?
I think we all are. We presented here, Chairman, we presented an opportunity to join with those other 47 local authorities across the country, those other 11 European Union countries across Europe, to have a new way of getting money into the system for public services, to combat climate change, to take these sorts of actions that we need to, across the world, have a sum of money that we can do something with that doesn't take money from individuals. You're choosing to, lambast it and rubbish it. That's your choice. But as I say, we'll be ahead of the curve, and it'll be something that we'll be doing because it doesn't impact in individuals as the other ways taxation does. So thank you for the debate, and I hope you will support the motion.
Okay, we've had the motion proposed and seconded and debated. The motion now will be put. Those who favour debate, they press 2. Against, 3. 4. Abstain. Are we ready to vote? You can vote now. Please. Have all those who want to vote voted? I close the vote. Thank you. I'm going to declare that those in favour of the motion were 16, against 54, abstained were 2.
Andrew.
Motion carries. I propose adjourning this council until 10 minutes past 4. 10 minutes past 4.
Mr. Chairman, let me read you some of what Ofsted has actually said. In September 2013, reporting on their schools-focused inspections, I am very concerned that nearly a fifth of the schools inspected were judged inadequate. In some schools, the local authority has not intervened early enough. Support provided by the local authority for those schools that have serious weaknesses has not been effective. The local authority has been aware of the issues for some time but has not acted swiftly enough or with sufficient robustness to arrest a decline in standards. The Raising the Bar initiative is regarded with varying degrees of credibility. The head teacher's main concern is that the local authority's plans have not focused sharply or urgently enough on the need for high-quality teaching and learning. They went on to say that over half the schools surveyed had not been approached to help others. and that the move away from local authority continuing professional development means there is insufficient support to drive improvements in teaching. And damning, we are aware that the outcomes of the focused inspections largely did not come as a surprise to you. It raises the question, therefore, of why the local authority has not done more to effect improvement. And then in January of this year, reporting on this Council's arrangements for school improvement, the local authority arrangements for supporting school improvement are ineffective. The local authority's strategy to challenge and support schools is weak. The local authority does not have a strategic plan for the Learning Improvement Service. The local authority has left some schools to languish far too long in mediocrity. Local authority officers have not consistently used available information to intervene quickly and provide both challenge and support. And it's not just Ofsted. This is Ben Gunn. I want to stress that there are many fantastic teachers in Suffolk and they need celebrating, but their work is being undermined through bad leadership in schools. We need a sense of urgency which the County Council has not yet shown. Of course, performance in Suffolk schools has been known to be weak for some time. The Key Stage 2 results in 2011 should have been a wake-up call. 18th from bottom in the entire country. But by 2012, we were 3rd from bottom. And last year, we'd risen to 6th from bottom. And Key Stage 4 results were not much better. 123rd out of 151 in 2011, and 136th out of 151 in 2013. Education in Norfolk has also been poor in recent years. They came 5th from the bottom in Key Stage 2 results in 2013. But unlike in Suffolk, the county administration in Norfolk took some decisive action after their June inspection last year. The recent Ofsted report states Norfolk secondary schools have shown the strongest improvement in the region. The local authority has developed a strategy, and it has begun to challenge schools that are underperforming. In Suffolk, in contrast, only 6 schools currently have Section 60 warning notices, and one of those is about to be closed anyway. It hasn't always been this way. What did Her Majesty's Chief Inspector of Schools say in 2001 when Labour ran the county? Suffolk is an outstanding local education authority with many strengths. Under the excellent leadership of officers and members, the LEA is clearly focused on continuous improvement and is a credit to the community it serves. In 2002, Suffolk was in the top 10 performers in the country. By January 2013, in terms of GCSE results, Suffolk was 142nd out of 150 local authorities. There are 2 practical measures which we know you could take, and which we have constantly urged you to take, and which you have repeatedly refused to take. Firstly, you need to expand and empower the Educational Welfare Officer Service. For primary attendance in 2001-2 and in 2002-3, Suffolk was the 10th best in the country. By 2011-12, Suffolk had slipped to 131st. That's 21 places from the bottom. And last year, we were 132nd, 20th from the bottom. And for secondary attendance, Suffolk managed 11th in 2007-8. In the 4 years to 2012, however, it tumbled 103 places to 114. This is by some margin the biggest fall of any local authority in such a short period of time. You are not going to get good results from children in school if they are not in school. Mr. Chairman, did you start the bell before people sat down and shut up? Thank you. Secondly, you need to adequately resource the school improvement service. Year after year, you cut the amount of money being spent on school improvement. You refuse to support our call for more resources this year. At the end of the current financial year, you will have £1.2 million underspent on school improvement, and this is because you have simply not employed sufficient school improvement officers or provided the managerial support to enable them to work as effectively as they should. We are asking, demanding, that you spend the amount of money that you know it will cost to deliver the level of service which the young people in Suffolk deserve and which other local authorities in this country are able to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder for your motion?
Two words. Ineffective and weak. Ofsted, not mine, Mr. Chairman, in their recent report on Suffolk County Council's arrangements for supporting school improvement, quote, "Too few pupils in Suffolk attend a Google Letter School and far too many attend a school that is inadequate. That is unacceptable." And, I quote, "The proportion of pupils achieving average levels of attainment and making at least nationally expected progress at the end of Key Stage 2 and 4 is well below average. This is damaging the life chances of young people in this county." That's from the Ofsted report. Damaging the life chances of young people in the county is surely not a legacy that this administration wishes to leave behind. Yes, there are excellent heads of schools and outstanding teachers and pupils who do well, but it is not consistent across the county. Good education should not be a postcode lottery. We must ensure all our children get the chance, and if not, why not? For example, the average figures at GCSE mask a wide variation across Suffolk. If a pupil attends a high school in Lowestoft, where 2 out of 4 of the high schools are currently in special measures, their average GCSE performance last year was 11% below the county figure. What is being done to improve their life chances? Young people need our support to aspire and aim high. At the full budget meeting last month, I asked Councillor Chambers, where is the fully funded vision of good practice to be undertaken without delay across all schools in Suffolk? And why are we washing our hands of providing a clear leadership role in education in Suffolk? Ofsted have asked the same 2 questions of this administration, plus many others. Councillor Chambers' reply, which I'm sure will be mentioned here again, is that raising the bar programme will deal with the problem of underperforming schools. However, without adequate staff and resources, Suffolk County Council will not have the capacity to support schools to improve. A well-resourced school improvement service could become a facilitator for excellence across Suffolk, linking outstanding teachers and outstanding heads with schools across the county that require support to raise attainment. Again, quote, Ofsted, "Suffolk County Council must improve communication with school leaders so that they understand the local authority's role in school improvement. A school governor and councillor wrote to me to say, quote, "I felt Suffolk County Council as the local authority had fundamentally let both the school and myself down in doing nothing to communicate clearly its role in supporting the school I was involved with over 18 months of huge change. The staff and pupils during this time had no support to ensure that education was not affected. Why did this happen?" Ofsted quote, "Strategic planning to achieve the council ambition is incomplete. It is unclear how the progress and impact of the local authority's work will be tracked and measured." As a teacher, the nub of this entire report is summed up in that Ofsted comment. At the start of the school year, with 30 pupils in your classroom, say a Year 10 history group, they will expect you to get to know them, their current grade, their target grade that they would achieve in 2 years' time. There is an action plan, a timeline, there are regular assessments, so as a teacher you know and the pupils know what they are expected to do and how they are measuring up. In other words, data tracking. The work ahead is planned by academic year, term, week and individual lessons, so everybody knows where they need to get to by the end of that 2-year period. By contrast, Suffolk County Council has the responsibility for all the pupils in Suffolk. Where is the overall strategic plan for the Raising the Bar initiative? What is the success criteria? And how will we all know when it is achieved? What will it look like? Are there targets set? Who will measure and record the data? Who will do the analysis? Recently, there has been a rash of press releases from the administration on Suffolk businesses raising the bar awards and truancy sweeps. All very laudable, but how do these all fit into the overall strategic plan for Suffolk and the improvement of young people's life chances? The Education and Children's Services Scrutiny Committee has met just twice since the start of the academic year, in September and December. Surely, with so much education under Ofsted scrutiny, why is the committee not meeting more frequently to analyse the critical report and look at how to improve Suffolk County Council's support for school improvement. This shows a complete disregard for the seriousness of the situation. Finally, Mr Chairman, 2 quotes from my classroom wall which apply here, I feel. Failure to plan is planning to fail, and if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got. Children only get one chance of their education. We must all ensure it is the best that Suffolk can provide. This will only happen if there is a swift and effective change to this administration's oversight of education. I fully support the motion.
Fine, so made it open the floor. Councillor Chambers, your first.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. This council can have absolute confidence in the political leadership of education in Suffolk. And I urge everyone in this chamber to oppose this motion. We fully understand the challenges we face in this rapidly changing education landscape. We need to raise aspiration and attainment, encourage our young people to stay in education, to acquire additional qualifications and skills, and help them to be ready for the world of work. Attainment across the board certainly hasn't fallen since 2005. On the contrary, it has gone up. But the pace is not quick enough, and I am the first to acknowledge that. But that is beginning to change. Not only is attainment continuing to improve, we are starting to catch up with our neighbours. And as Councillor Martin noted, last year's results moved us up the league table at Key Stage 4 for English and Maths and Key Stage 2. Crucially, while other counties who moved from 3-tier to 2-tier schools saw their performance dip, our attainment levels actually improved. Overall, in 2012, 66% of our schools were good or outstanding. That now sits at 70%. In no sense is this good enough. Our ambition, as I've already said today, is to see every child going to a good or outstanding school, and in every lesson to be taught by a good or outstanding teacher. The completion of the school's organisation review is vital. It is a much needed change, and the evidence behind it is very clear. Labour lacked courage to take this policy decision when it came up. Happily, my predecessors, Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Newman, certainly didn't lack that courage. And thanks to their determination, the most important restructuring we could undertake for the young people of this county was set on its course. Not satisfied with that, Councillor Newman instigated raising the bar 2 years ago. This has now spawned a number of exciting developments, many of which precisely those which Ofsted highlighted as being needed, confirming that we are on the right track. You did allow extra for the opposition, Mr Chairman. We are pressing ahead with the redesign of the Learning and Improvement Service, developing a 4-year school improvement strategy, and as I said to the media when the Ofsted letter was announced, this will be delivered this month. The proposals for the vision and priorities of the Learning Partnership have now been put forward, and we are working closely with a dedicated group of head teachers to deliver this. There is so much more than my 3 minutes will allow. Mr Chairman, improving education attainment is not something that this County Council can do on its own. It's about building a county-wide partnership, creating a momentum for long-term improvement, and ensuring that we have the very best leaders in all of our schools. The political leadership of the County Council is united in its desire and determination to achieve this. The momentum sits with us, and all members here in this chamber can have every confidence we will be successful.
Councillor Bart is the next speaker, please. Councillor Bart.
Thank you, Chair. You are the equivalent of a school governing body. Ofsted have found you ineffective. They would replace you with an interim executive board if they were here, We talk about history, we have history lessons on the other side of the chamber quite often. In 2005, when the Conservatives took control of this county, Councillor O'Brien said there was going to be a radical shake-up of education by moving to a two-tier system from a three-tier system. Basically, SOR is going to be pushed through at any price. No choice. SOR, Schools Organisation Review, is a sore point in various elements because the consultation there, according to many people, has not been carried out fully. Parental views not taken fully on board. We were promised a world-class education by the Conservatives. Yes, it's turning into a third world-class education. There are concerns about standards. Councillor Chambers said the standards aren't dropping. They're not rising very quickly. In 2011, Councillor Newman, Radio Suffolk, Mark Murphy, the overriding thing is to get SOR through because that has such a great effect. Yes, we're seeing the effect, particularly in Lowestoft, where standards are not improving. If this admin really wants to improve education, go out into the schools, talk to all who work in them, talk to pupils, talk to parents, talk to teachers. Don't take your photographer with you, don't make it a photo opportunity, but go and talk to them. Stop all this nonsense of finding your photogenic head teacher who will say the right thing that you want them to hear and it looks good in the press. Talk to them, talk to the workforce, your workforce. 9 years ago, you promised this shake-up of education. You've achieved it. You've shaken us from the top of the tree to the bottom. I don't think that's very good. This is an ineffective authority, according to Ofsted. They saw all your plans, even despite the plans about raising the bar. Incidentally, you will not raise the bar because you haven't got a grip on it. And also, a declaration of interest. My children are in the local authority school, so tread softly, because you tread on their tree. I will hold you personally to account if you do not sort out the atrocious standards that we're seeing in terms of the school's improvement service. You decimated it. You decimated it in 2011, in 2007, when you started to dismantle it, ready for the school's organisation review in Lowestoft. You took the advisors out of schools, and now you're talking about putting them back in again. I would love to see my children have the same standards of education as those of the Prime Minister. And please don't tell me there's no money, but with respect to our armed forces, you can find money for a cruise missile. So find the money for our schools and improvement. I support the motion.
Councillor Penny-Off is next speaker. Penny-Off, please.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to repeat the statements that have been made from the Ofsted report. I think most of you would have read those. And I'm afraid I have to say that I'm so delighted that I am not in the position that that you are, because I would be ashamed. I'm afraid I have to repeat some of the things that I have said before. I believe that you took your eye off the ball because you thought that SOR would be the solution to all your problems. And it has not been, and it proved to be a failure, particularly in certain areas. And I think that's a pity. I think the issue that you spent too much time, too much money, and too much effort on thinking that we'll abolish some of our really, really good schools. Certainly ones in Bury St Edmund, certainly ones in the other parts of the county. And as a result, you have got parents, you have got children, and you have got governors who feel disincentivised. They feel that they've been let down because you have now abolished those extremely good schools that were achieving the very things that you want to achieve. Councillor Chambers said we are now building county-wide partnerships, and I say to you that you should not have been doing that now. You should have been doing that 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's almost too late. There are some very, very good and excellent schools and excellent teachers in this county, but you have a problem because you are now so low within the league tables that to encourage new and exciting and very good teachers to come to Suffolk, they are reluctant to do so because they are worried that they will end up with their children in schools which are not succeeding in the way that they would wish them to. Raising the bar 2 years ago, and I think it's been said, where is the timeline? We've been talking that it's a good idea. We haven't seen what is going to come out of that. And I have to say, teachers that I know are now saying they are overwhelmed, and quite frankly, if they hear the words raising the bar again, they are beginning to say, oh, not again, not again. I really feel that it's time that you looked again at the way you will be treating the children in this county so that we can raise their level of the on the league tables back to when the Labour and Liberal Democrats were in charge of this county.
Councillor David, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I haven't got any party political points to make because I'm not a member of one. But I think Lisa Chambers probably summed it up when she said it's not good enough. That was her own words in her own speech. And so therefore I think she's condemned herself by her own statement. If you look at her report, 7B, and look at the recent schools Ofsted inspections, 25% are considered to be inadequate. I mean, that is a terrible high figure, 25% inadequate, and a very small percentage who have got outstanding. And I think people should be saying sorry. So I'm going to say it. I'm sorry that I've not been able to persuade the Cabinet to look at Bury St Edmunds in the Howard and Tollgate areas and try and come up with some sort of solution which brings the children of the northern parts of Bury St Edmunds into the outstanding county upper school, which is an academy trust. And I hope that even at this late hour, because the final decision was made in April, that there will be a reconsideration of that, because at least let's not make the situation worse. We've got a good performing schools in Bury St Edmunds, and I hope that would improve, and I hope that the Cabinet will reconsider. Somebody will say sorry on behalf of this administration. I think I'm going to be unlucky, but I would certainly think that this motion is well worth supporting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Councillor Nancy Field.
Thank you, Chairman. According to our own Report Scrutiny Committee in September 2013, education other than its school provision is inadequate. Scrutiny called for more resources to make suitable provision for excluded children. They made a case for more and adequate resources for the Learning Improvement Service to support schools who are supporting children at risk of exclusion. Also, scrutiny called for a clear strategy to maximise the achievements of children who are excluded or who are at risk of exclusion. These criticisms mirror the criticisms of Ofsted and show another area of education that is being failed by this administration. I support the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be relatively brief. The motion is pretty heavy, to be honest, in what it's asking me to agree to, and calling for anyone's scalp, as it were, is a pretty heavy thing to do. But having been the ward member for a primary school that's about to close, because of what many of my constituents were telling me was ineffective support, and I was holding the line, saying, no, I'm sure the officers are doing all they possibly can. And then to be informed that the closure orders were going to be sent out 48 hours after they'd been sent out, asking for an apology from someone, and only getting one verbally in a chain here. No one's ever written back to me to apologise for that oversight. I was beginning to agree with some of the members of my public. And I was also beginning to long to see the Ofsted report come to actually flush this out. because there seemed to be something not quite right. It often happens with planning departments at district councils. You think you can see they're not performing quite right. There's something wrong somewhere. Either the officers are wrong, or there's something in the mechanism that's not quite right. Or it could be cultural. And if it's cultural, you need a radical shift and move that on. Port at the Stoke Ash will close very shortly. 3 years ago, at its officer inspection, it was in the second highest group it could have been for a school. Absolutely unassailable. Loads of people going there. People driving their children there, much to my worry, from other areas to go to this school because it was so wonderful and the education services it provided. But it hit a perfect storm, and not a big storm. And illness in a member of its staff can happen to any school. Its partnership with a neighbouring school started to get a little bit rocky. They were starting to have sort of verbal fisticuffs. It can happen to any school if it's not formally federated. And an Ofsted inspection came and put this school into special measures. Parents moved their children out, and there are 3 parents left within a fortnight. That's 3 pupils left within a fortnight. That's dreadful. And then within 3 months of this school is then going to close. 3 years ago, unassailable. Nothing's going to happen to this school. It's now not going to make its 100th year. And I then write, after all this, and take all this flack on the chin, I then write to the Education Scrutiny Committee, because I've got a post on that, and I think the work it's doing is brilliant and valuable, because it needs to happen. So I write to the Education Scrutiny Committee to see whether we're urgently going to take this on, and if you look at the agenda for next week, it's not even on the agenda.
Oh, no.
Thank you, Councillor. Next speaker is please. Yes.
It's on the agenda. Not on the agenda.
Thank you, Chairman. We have been reminded of today that back in 2005 we had an education authority, an attainment in Suffolk we could be proud of. And I'm thinking today we've got 2014, 9 years. And there was one thing Councillor Barker said, and that was children only have one chance of education. Now, I think we need to think carefully about the children. Yes, I certainly hope that we get up there again, but what about the children who have been there in the meantime? How are we going to make it up to them? You know, as a parent, I know how important education is. And if our children miss 2, 3, 4 years of not so good education, it is not always that easy to make up later. So I think today we should not all sort of say, oh, we have, as you have shouted about how clearly proud of where you are at the other side, but spare thought for the children who have had maybe only a few years of bad education. I know what education have done to my children. It is their future. Some of these children may one day be county councillors. We certainly want them to have had a good education so they can be good county councillors. Spare thought for these children. How are we going to make it up to them?
This administration's handling of children's centres is nothing short of disgraceful. There's a huge amount of confusion, mixed messages and procrastination by this administration on the future of centres across the county. Children's centres are a vital service for those that need them. The way discussions on the closure of the Ormiston Children's Centre on Felixstowe Road in Ipswich has been handled has left parents confused and understandably angry. This is typical of the way this administration is running all of education. There is no control, no direction, no strategy. And even Conservatives agree. At a meeting last night about the Ormiston Centre, Endeavour said that the way this administration is behaving is unacceptable. I do not think that this administration has the vision, desire or ability to improve education services.
And then a second mic to Councillor Ereira, I think is next in line.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's difficult to better some of the contributions made from colleagues around this motion, and the leader of the opposition's speech as well. Excellent. So in June of last year, David Nettleton, myself, and the director residents, head teacher, governor of Howard Middle School, we all met to try and ensure, before the consultation came out, about the pathways for children on the Mildenhall Road estate, Howard estate, would go forward with the reorganisation of the schools. And that wasn't a very satisfactory meeting, but that's how it was left. Last week at scrutiny, we were discussing this issue even further, and we learned actually that a meeting between the director and the Academy Trust isn't going to take place, I think, until tomorrow. Throughout all this period of no engagement about some of the most important things that we, Councillor Nettleton and myself, have been pushing for those children in that particular area. And sometimes you look at that and think, is this contrived incompetence by the authority in this way? Is this the Conservative administration just seeking to push all the schools into academies and free schools as part of the government's agenda for their education policies? Because that's how it is perceived by lots of people that I speak to in my division. They see it as chaotic, they see it as incompetent, and it's incompetent time and time again. And how did we get here? How did we get to such a poor situation? 22 years ago, when my wife started teaching primary school in Bury St Edmunds, everybody that we then spoke to loved working for the LEA. They talked about it in such good terms. Now they can't get away quick enough. They think the LEA is awful, and I think that's a great shame. The political management, which we're discussing here today, and I think we have to be honest with ourselves. You've got the political mandate to do what you've done over the last 2 terms, and you've got re-elected in May to continue that. You've got that mandate. But operationally, you are falling down. Our relationship with the union, the NUT, at an all-time low. No response to emails from directors. Councillor Stringer has touched on that. Governing bodies coming to the scrutiny meeting last week and really turning the council off a strip. Parents, the Ipswich MP telling you that it's not good enough. Learning support and advice, that was a cut too deep. Just finally, Chairman, I think this motion is really difficult. Because if we come out of this chamber, I don't think we necessarily will, saying we've got no confidence in how we're providing education. I don't know what that message is to the people outside of this chamber. So I think it's a difficult one to decide exactly how to vote. But I think clearly this authority has gone very, very badly in how it is managing the provision of education for our children.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, is next speaker.
Thank you, Chairman. Just revisiting this question of school organisation review. My first 2 years as Cabinet Member for Education, I can tell you that 3/4 of this county's middle schools were in the bottom quarter of this performance at Key Stage 2. And those are the schools which we've now started to see improvement at, where those children now moved to primary schools and are staying for the full period of their Key Stage 2 education, and the attainment they're reaching in both Lowestoft and Haverhill is much, much higher than it ever was in those days. So don't come telling me that it didn't work. It has worked. It's worked jolly well. The next thing is this, Mr. Chairman. Not a single pupil who has come through the system in Lowestoft and Haverhill, even this last year, has actually had a 2-tier education. That's because this plan is going to fall out now over the next 5 years. It was never going to be a short-term fix, but by golly, it's something we needed to do, and I still support the principle that we did it. 4 successive phases of school organisation review I've handled. The last 2 of those were not at my behest, but at the behest of the schools in question. All right? And furthermore, I can't read very right again, somebody was talking about how procedures weren't sound. Our procedures were tested in every possible way about the consultation that we'd undertaken on those jobs and were found to be in order. So that is also not true. Even in Bury now, 20 out of the 24, 25 schools still want to proceed with the school organisation review. It was them who came to this county council and said, don't give up now, we want you to finish it off. So, yeah, we've got an academy there that declared itself 3 years ago to try and get out of SOR. The rest of the schools in Ereira do want to go. Here's my final point, Mr. Chair. Mr. Councillor Martin made some reference to children need to be in school in order to receive an education. Now, according to the Members' Register of Interest, 2 of the members opposite belong to the National Union of Teachers. And what did the National Union of Teachers do on the 1st of October last year? And are doing on the 26th of March this year? They're going on strike for a whole day. That is 100% of the children of that school will not get an education on either of those 2 days, not the odd 2 or 3% to which Councillor Martin referred.
Councillor Gordon-Jones, next speaker, please. Thank you, Chairman. There are only 3 things in life which are inevitable: death, taxes, and neighbours call for more funding. The latter 2 are, of course, strongly connected. Labour politicians seem to think that money grows on trees, and think that the world simply cannot spin on taxes without some sort of funding from government. Of course, Mr. Chairman, neither of these is true. Happily, on this side of the chamber, we're ready to deal with reality. And reality means rolling up our sleeves, getting on with the job, and making the money we do have go as far as possible. And in the last year, we've done just that. Some good work has been done, and much progress made. We have an excellent new director of CYP, who has really hit the ground running, and is helping enormously with the raising of our agenda. Councillor Chambers has already mentioned some of the progress, and to that a new relationship with Hackney, which has already led to a new primary maths pilot in the west of the county. Meanwhile, more than 70% of primaries have signed up to the school-led improvement initiative, Families of Schools. At the same time, schools and businesses are being connected, with over 2,500 students already having taken part, helping them to be more prepared for working life. 100 places have been secured for school governors on the National Leadership Development Programme, and speaking from my own experience, I can't stress enough the importance of having strong, effective governments, governors prepared to lead and prepared to challenge when needed. And all the time we bang the drum for aspiration improvement, the more the momentum grows. Our Raising the Bar Awards, recognising excellence in schools, colleges, early years and other settings, received over 800 nominations. I have to ask, where have the opposition been for the last year? Sitting idly by while debating the RSA report, barely saying a word on raising the bar when he started out, and having nothing to note to say about the results last year, which saw our schools start to slow the inexorable rise in the league tables. Yes, Mr. Chairman, our results improved last year, whilst nationally results stood still. And yet the opposition waits till now, just as the evidence is clear that things are moving in the right direction. Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have real challenges to overcome in Suffolk. Yes, there's still lots to do, but the restructuring that Labour called for is already happening. The funding that Labour called for is already in place. And the political leadership of education in Suffolk is passionate, determined, and already delivering results. I urge everyone in this chamber to oppose the motion. Thank you.
Harley, please, next speaker. Thank you. Get this right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Councillor Martin and colleagues, for reminding me why I refer to on this side of the chamber. What always strikes me about the Labour Party is their inherent Stalinist attitude behind their Ever since 1997, the Labour Party has made an unremitting attack upon education in general, and particularly upon the education of the working classes whom they claim to represent. In 1996, Tony Blair reminded that what mattered was education, 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 and he meant it. He sent four of his children abroad to origin. Harriet Harman did the same, and Diane Abbott couldn't wait to get her son into the City of London School. No thank you for him. Meanwhile, the rest of the country suffered from restrictive control, dirigist interference, and great inflation. Let me declare an interest, broad interest. I went to a school with restricted and selected entry requirements.
Long before it was fashionable, I went to school in the Tower Hamlets, namely St Mary's and St Michael's. Those nuns were all about education. It was about pushing the children forward and preparing them for employability in later life. What the Labour Party left us was an overwhelming design to measure everything. Even now in the county, we monitor over 100 metrics, in the false belief that because we can measure it, we must therefore be able to control it. Raising the bar is not about layers of control. It's not about what's good for me and what's good enough for you. It's not about working harder. Our teachers and heads workers in the schools work very hard indeed. It's about working smarter at all levels. It's about giving teachers and heads the tools to do their jobs properly, and then let them get on with it. And that's what appalls me about the Labour Party's proposals. Throw in more money, employ more bodies, add another layer of reporting, all in the name of assistance. I know confidence reserved for the Labour Party opposite, and I will vote unequivocally against the motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Adams, please.
Thank you, Chair. I too find some of the things that have come from the opposite side of the change are quite frankly astonishing. I don't believe that you can actually believe all the things you're saying. Because if you really did believe that education would not be in the state that it is in Suffolk at the moment. I send both my children to state schools, both in Ipswich. I spend a lot of time in a variety of different schools for all sorts of different reasons. And seeing how disillusioned so many head teachers, so many teachers, so many parents, so many governors have become, feeling that they're under constant attack. It's not just from the administration here, it's also from the national government, it's from Ofsted. It's feeling that everything you do, no matter which way you go, nobody actually gives you the respect, the time, or the decency to say, actually, most of you, the vast majority, are doing a bloody good job. You are committed, you do believe in it, you utterly want those children to achieve. I want my children to achieve. I'm sure all of you who've got children here want your children to achieve. And what I see in the schools that I go into is, in some ways, a very sad picture. When I listen to the parents of children who have, parents of children with autism spectrum disorders, with ADHD, with other behavioural difficulties, and I hear about the exclusions, both part-time exclusions, in-school exclusions and permanent exclusions, children sent out of county to Shropshire and various other places to boarding schools because the county cannot and does not have the ability to provide for them. Yes, the National Autistic Society is going to submit a bid to open a free school, possibly on the Limburg Road site, which me and a number of other colleagues, this side of the chamber and the other, are going to see tomorrow. And hopefully, in the future, in some years' time, there may well be a provision in Suffolk that is exemplary, that is absolutely brilliant for those young people. At the moment, that doesn't exist. That means not only will we failing children today, it's adults that will also fail, that have gone through our education system, and out the other side, that are still waiting. When I first got elected, which was only in May last year, so less than a year ago, we heard about the 0 to 25 children and young people's autism strategy. We heard about the adult autism strategy, and yet all I hear from parents and from adults is the situation is getting worse, not better. Surely by now we should be seeing some improvement. Surely by now your strategy should be working, and we should be seeing the results of it. I happen to be the chair of a school that has an outstanding status by Ofsted at the moment. We've been trying to recruit a full-time teacher. We could not recruit one in England. In the end, we recruited a member of staff from Ireland. It is true, people don't want to come to Suffolk. I love Suffolk. I was born in Suffolk. I went away for a while, but I came back. It's because I really do think this is the place that I want to live, and I want to bring up my children. If we can't, as an outstanding school, recruit teachers, what hope do all the other schools have had? Another school I'm involved with that had huge support from county, has just had an Ofsted inspection, has gone from a 3 to a 4. So even with all of that alleged support, it hasn't actually improved, despite watching huge amounts of support being put into it. Frankly, I'm sad and disappointed and appalled that Suffolk is failing our young people so badly. So I genuinely believe that with the right commitment and resources, we could actually make a difference. And I do think there's a lot of people on the other side who think that too. It's just how do we do it? And I wish we could see that. And I'd like to know when you really think we're going to see an improvement in education in Suffolk. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jane Story. Jane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm actually really glad that I'm speaking after Councillor Adams because actually I think a lot of people on both sides of this chamber actually do want what is best. And we probably agree with her that most, if not all of our schools are trying to do the best that they can for the children there. And they do face an uphill struggle against all sorts of regulations, as Ofsted, and there's, all the things that you talked about. And certainly, all I want for the children in this county is the best education possible. And I think that's what we all want. I'd like to have more scrutiny, as Councillor Barker suggested, certainly more scrutiny meetings. But the suggestion that the Ofsted report will not come into the discussion on raising the bar, as Councillor Stringer seems to suggest, is to not give credit to either the members of scrutiny, because I'm sure they will bring it in, or to the education officers as well, because I believe that as part of the Raising the Bar's report, that they will have to bring in a reference, certainly, to the Ofsted report. There has been a suggestion that SOR is not working, and I think that what's brought up always is the education system in Lowestoft. Well, I know that there's a lot of people who think that life begins and ends in Lowestoft, but there are other areas of Suffolk. Haverhill being one. It was done at the same. It was changed over at the same time as Lowestoft, and that is doing very well educationally. So I think there's always an opportunity to twist the statistics on this. And we're not averse to twisting statistics as you are either. But I think we do recognise that there are problems. We know that, but chopping and changing policy is not going to be the answer. I have to say that I do have a personal interest in SOR in Bury, because my sister teaches in the Academy Trust. But regardless of that, I think what we're doing is right. And I think what we should be doing is forging ahead, improving the schools, giving them the support that they need, and just cracking on. Never mind all this arguing, let's just crack on with it.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mary Evans, please. Mary Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Timing is everything, isn't it? Councillor Adams has told us about the school that she's seen supported in failing. I want to tell you about two primary schools in my division, with a head sharing the role who's turning them around and improving them daily. And that echoes what I'd like to say from Councillor Jones' speech, that we are seeing improvements daily. They're not going fast enough, maybe, we'd like to see more, but raising the bar is truly beginning to work. We're seeing standards improve. And that's the way we've got forward. We haven't radically reshaped or radically altered education in Suffolk, and it's beginning to work. We've got to see that through.
Thank you. Next speaker is Councillor Lane Jacklin. Councillor Jacklin, please.
Mr. Chairman, the other night was a dinner party in Wycombe. We had copious amounts of wine. The attendees at this dinner party were a head teacher, a deputy head teacher, a past headmaster of a high school, a past deputy head, a governor, a businessman, and myself, an ex-governor. And the discussion got down to education, as it inevitably would, it always does. And we were sat around the table, and it got more and more heated. And what came out of it weren't about statistics. It wasn't about whether we've achieved this or done that or done the other. It was just that there is no guidance. The deputy head of the school said, well, in fact, after a copious amount of wine, I won't repeat what she said, but let's face it, it was not very pleasant. She said to the Education Authority, I wouldn't give them the time of day, because they don't give us the time of day. They don't listen to us. They hold these raising the bar meetings, they go to the raising the bar meetings, they listen, and they come away knowing nothing. You're not telling them anything. You're giving them no aspiration. The fact that these schools, and this particular school I'm talking about has done particularly well, did well, is because of the hard work of the head and the deputy head. Nothing to do with the authority. That's the point. It's nothing to do with the authority. We've got head teachers, we've got teachers, we've got deputy heads, We've got teaching assistants working their backsides off to be told all the time that they're failing, and to be told all the time that the county statistics are down to them. And it's not. It's down to you and your guidance. Now, I tried passionately to try and defend you a lot, because I felt sort of a responsibility to the council, as they elected me for. But bottom line is, they had no respect for you or me trying to defend them. And quite frankly, I felt ashamed. I felt ashamed of what I was trying to defend. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that there isn't real aspiration on your side. What I am suggesting, though, is that it's ineffective. And you really need to have another look. You really do. Finally, I asked the young lady who was really, really passionate whether she would come and talk, ask a question of the council, because there is an opportunity. I don't think I would like to do that, because they would know who I was.
Next speaker.
Mr. Chairman, I'm struggling, as I'm sure many of my other colleagues, as to actually how this motion put forward today will actually help drive improvement. The education of Suffolk's children is not a place where party politics should play. Having said that, I am, however, grateful to be able to have the opportunity to show some examples of how this administration is driving through educational improvement, raising aspirations, and enriching the young people's lives through working together across directorates and getting on with the job. In Suffolk, through this administration's investment in culture and sport infrastructure and national and local partnership work, we are making vital contributions to the lives of young people with the ambition to raise aspirations and through this achieve and attain all. In 2012-13, our arts museums, in partnership with ourselves, spent £1,711,355 on projects and activities with schools and children and young people. They worked with 33,542 children and young people, 225 schools and 371 teachers, and this work produced the following outcomes. All students finishing the Dance East Centre of Advanced Training in 2013 were accepted onto higher education courses in dance or performing arts at the UK's top dance colleges. Pupils in years 5 and 8 in Hayfield, making poor progress in speaking and listening, achieved accelerated progress after working with the Theatre Royal on a comedy project. Suffolk Artlink is working in Lowestoft, seeking to improve parental engagement in the school activity. Almost half of the pupils taking part in this had achieved above accepted progress in reading and writing, whilst parental engagement has increased significantly from 20% to 200%. The new Wolseley Theatre Young Company was nominated for 3 awards in the 2013 Edinburgh Fringe Festival. The Museum of East Anglian Life has run a series of short vocational courses for the Key Stage 4 pupils with 5 schools and pupil referral units to prepare them for world work. A leading example of this is the primary school pupils planned and carried out restoration of historic flower that eventually went on display. I could go on. Mr. Chairman, this example shows how this administration is already providing results through working together, investing in our young people, and not playing party politics and getting on the job in hand. I strongly reject this motion put before us today.
Thank you, Chairman. I think motions of no confidence have been pretty rare over the years, certainly to challenge the whole political leadership. I think I'm happy to put on record that I'm in agreement with Councillor Ereira-Guyer that actually we were elected not even a year ago, on a manifesto, and just calling for no confidence in the political leadership is somewhat nonsensical. But far more serious, colleagues, I think today, is to use children as that basis. And then to come here and bandy all these statistics that you've dug up from different research documents to try and denigrate the achievements or otherwise of our children is not really very nice. But worse than that, with everything you've been saying, you're casting a further pall of gloom over our teachers, our heads, our governors, and even our parents. Yep, look, thank you. I've got rattled. That's exactly, it's just not fair and not right. And as for you, Kim, sitting there and clapping your new friend's Labour, so enthusiastically, sorry, what is your education policy? Are you going to stand up and tell us now what you would do about schools in Suffolk? We'd love to know. But I'm so glad that you patched up anything with Labour and that you're now going along with them. You did. Teachers, as you've said, many teachers might feel demoralised at times. Can I just remind you that a lot of that started under your Labour government, okay? Just remember all that, and how we, the Conservative government, have struggled to overturn all those years of dumbing down under a Labour government. Councillor Bryant, don't lecture this side using your children, please. I absolutely recognise that. I think at least 3 of the front bench have currently got children in schools in Suffolk run by this education authority. You haven't got some unique ownership there. Finally, I don't know about the Ofsted report that you quoted from selectively. It's a pity that Ofsted can't number their pages or their paragraphs or their bullet points, which doesn't make it very easy. But the Ofsted report that I've got, senior officers and politicians are ambitious and determined to secure improvements for all pupils in Suffolk. You didn't read that out, did you? The local authority has shown leadership in implementing a major reorganisation of schools in a changing educational landscape. You ducked that, we took it on. It's not easy, we're not quite there yet, but my goodness, we're determined, and you should back us instead of choosing this little cheap motion to denigrate our children.
Patricia O'Brien, please, your next speaker.
I would have to follow Joanne. I just like to start off just very briefly making a comment about what Inga Boddington said about the difficulty children have in making progress in underachieving schools and in doing the change and that they miss out in later life. Well, I went to 9 different schools, 3 of which were in New Zealand on the other side of the world, and I don't think I've done too badly. I did do my degree later, but I'm quite pleased. And what I'm saying is there's always a chance for children. There's always a chance if they feel that they miss out. What I would like to say is that parents play a vital part in a child's education. And whilst I was cabinet member of CYP, I encountered many parents who were quite content that their children were gaining satisfactory results. And I said to them, well, I'm not content. I want all children. I want all schools to be good. I wasn't saying world class, that wasn't my reason for that, but I thought good. If they can achieve good, then I will be satisfied. Getting very good, excellent, brilliant, but good would satisfy me if it was for all the children. Suffolk County Council is only trying to change the outcomes for our children, and they are doing a tremendously difficult job, I know. But parents and teachers must also take responsibility for our children's future. Thank you.
Next one was David. David, your next slide, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Both my wife and 2 children received their education in Suffolk. 2 of my grandchildren are also receiving their education in Suffolk. 2, however, will receive them, as Patricia said, at the other side of the world in New Zealand. And no one's receiving the best education at the moment. That's only in New Zealand, and that's a sheer fact, so we can learn things. What I'm really concerned about is a statement made by Councillor Jones over there, that we over here in the opposition are doing nothing. I think that's a bit of a trick. I really do think you should apologise for saying that. When SOR took place, you were so focused on that, you let go what was happening elsewhere. And I can witness to that because in my own area, a high school that's now an academy was really achieving well. All of a sudden it was in special measures. Now I, like many other councillors, from all parties in this chamber, immediately went to see what I could do. And you said we're not taking interest in anything. In actual fact, one of the nominations I made for raising the bar had been shortlisted, so hopefully they'll be successful. I got involved in initiatives and projects with them. I helped raise money. I've arranged meetings. Now, surely that system should have been in straight away doing things that I was helping to do. We've also been very lucky to appoint a very good head, principal, whatever, who's got you some good headlines when you so desperately need them. So please don't say we're not doing anything on this side or anywhere in the chamber, because we are. We are concerned about the education of Suffolk. I'm concerned about the education of my grandchildren, who we see, and their children who you see. I want us to be back where we belong, and I think you should take note of some of the things we say, because we're not sitting on our backsides idly watching go. We are trying to make things happen, and we need at times a little bit more help and a few more doors open so we can do this. Because we're asking for your help, they're asking for your help, and I know that the success we're finally having at the school I'm involved with, they can help you. You've only got to ask. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm sorry that everything seems to get polarised, particularly when you get into education. We're in this chamber to represent people, irrespective of political labels. I think the pity with this motion is it's destructive rather than constructive. I could have supported it if it had been something like, we realise there is a slight crisis, and we believe that, within education, and we therefore propose a cross-party think tank to come up with some ideas to put that problem right. That would have been a sensible way forward, would it not? But here we are, slagging each other off across the chamber. I mean, I'm not a great believer in league tables to start with. I think league tables go with darts, golf, cricket, football. I mean, I think there's far too much emphasis in this country on league tables, quite frankly. And if you speak to school teachers, and I've got two within my family, I know one is in the borough of Newham, which is slightly different to Suffolk, and the other one's in Cambridgeshire. The big problem with all school teachers is they are weighed down with bureaucracy, which doesn't come from the county, it comes from central government. And if you're going to get people to function correctly, you've got to simplify this. It's such a huge burden on school teachers. I don't think anybody appreciates the amount of pressure school teachers have. And I honestly think, let's go forward and try to be constructive, not destructive. And I'm not going to blame anybody over there, in particular for any failures. I think you've all done your best, like everybody tries to do and haven't done. So, for goodness sake, let's plant the idea of a cross-party think tank into how we might improve education. So, thank you very much.
On my list to speak, I've got Chris Plant will be next, Jenny Athill, Matthew Hicks, Jenny Godson, John Goodwin, and James Finch. Who's on the list. Obviously, we're going to have Kindness and Mark B, and a proposal of a motion as part of the debate anyway. Is there anyone else who would wish to be added to that list, please? No, so that's right. Sorry, forgive me, yes? Oh, yes. Yes. So that will be the actual list if the County Council agrees to that. Are you happy with that? Happy with that? Come on. Yeah. Right. Next speaker, Chris Plant. Happy to hear you, Chris.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I listened with interest. About 5 months ago, I became governor at Federation Beccles, which was Bennett, it's Edmund.
I soon realised it's not about anybody knocking anybody, it's about teachers, assistants, parents, governors, you guys, all working together as one team and singing from the same hymn sheet. You know, everybody, you're all rowing the boat in the same direction and all sing together, you'll have a good song. So I've realised, okay, I've heard that things maybe weren't so good, so I went into those schools, and the schools are doing okay. But they just need a little bit of help and guidance from time to time, and everybody going in the same direction, and then it will work. So please, continue this what we're doing. But also, I would encourage you all, as I know some of you are governors, but those who are not governors, just go into those schools in your ward. You may be doing it, talk to them, listen to them, and come back and see where you can help and learn from other schools and governors. And then we can win. We can all win together. I don't think that knocking one another is going to help anybody at this point in time. You know, I'm a RSC supporter, and the worst thing is people start arguing with the manager. You just got to support and try and move forward. I recommend you do that, please.
Thank you. Any answer next, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I will be supporting the motion because I share the view of those who want to take a constructive rather than a destructive attitude to education in this county. I want to look forward and not backwards, and I don't want to discount the signs of improvement we are already seeing. But having said that, I don't think that we can ignore, and I don't think we are ignoring, the criticisms that have been levelled at us by Ofsted. And I think it's right to say that there are lessons to be learnt, and I share with Councillor Stringer the view that where you have had a worked example of the bottom up of a school, in his case that has completely shut or is shutting, in my case where it is threatened with closure at Monthsey, and we all heard about that earlier today. But we must look at those worked examples and to take lessons from what's happened and look at them closely through the scrutiny process. And I also think that we all have a part to play in our own areas. We all want education to improve. I have other schools that could suddenly catastrophically fail. I don't want to see that happen. And I think, in common with me, everybody should be going around their schools, and I know many of you do, listening and talking to teachers, finding out what's going wrong. If we could all do that, I think working from the bottom up, we could do an awful lot to improve the top down. So, I hope that's all. So I would just urge you to go into all your schools and try together to get us back on track. Well, we are on track, but to get us moving faster up the rankings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then Matthew next, Matthew. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I saw the motion before us, I started to think that this is a very sad day, that the Labour Party has chosen to go for a quick headline in the East Anglian Daily Times. What is sad about this is just a cheap political point-scoring exercise, and it's something we're starting to see every month at Council. Last Council meeting we had a budget debate with no substance at all from Labour. Yet again, no substance, just quick headlines. Councillor Martin, you must be running for an election. Councillor Lisa Chambers has said, and made this very clear, that this administration is clearly committed to driving through improvement to the education system, and in this year's budget reaffirmed the commitment to this as a number one priority, with an extra £4.9 million being invested. I spend a lot of time in schools, I talk to Ed, and I am a governor. Changes and improvements are happening. We are on the road of improvement. And I have heard Councillor Chambers say often she wants all children to be taught by good and outstanding teachers in good and outstanding schools. Well, how fantastic is that? So I reject this motion, and I hope the Labour Party can focus its energy on children's education rather than headlines. And a good start would be if Councillor Barker would recommend the NUT didn't harm the children next week and go on strike.
Thank you, Chairman. I suppose I'm fortunate. I have a very good high school and my primary school children go to. However, I enjoy a good partnership with Putney High School, and I also enjoy a good relationship with my 4 primary schools, 2 in my division and 2 that are right on the border. Both take children from my division. One of those schools, however, was beginning to fail. It was brought to my attention, it was action, that school is now doing very well. But to succeed, it is not us, it is not you. It is not just the authorities who do it. It is not teachers and it's not heads on their own. It needs a good PTA, it needs support from the parents, because unless the parents get behind their children and encourage them to do their homework and get their heads down to work and go to school, nothing but anyone in this chamber will do will make the school succeed.
John Goodman, Phoenix, John.
Yeah. I'd like to mention Phoenix, I can't think of any reason to do so. Thank you. Unusually, I'm agreeing with 2 of our members' officers. Councillor David Wood said we've got a good head. That's what he did. And Len, I love old Len because he always shoots himself in the foot and gives me no credit. Thank you, Len. Ex-businessman, so he knows how things work, he's a successful businessman. And he said, I think, quoting your words, the deputy head and the head worked really hard, and now it's a good school. Well, that's game, 7 match. Thank you.
Councillor James Finch. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't planning to speak in this debate, but as this debate started at such a low ebb, I felt that I should speak on behalf of the children of Suffolk. I felt that they were being told that they were in an education system that was going wrong by the opposition. I am very fortunate to be in an area with some very good schools. I thought it was very appropriate that we had James Skeet here as the Director of Education for the Diocese. We have some excellent schools as examples and exemplars of good education, with good heads, good deputy heads, with good governors. Part of our policy, whether it be SOR or raising the bar, is to actually work with those in partnership so that we can all move that forward. The restructuring was never going to be easy. It was never going to be a quick fix. But I can assure you, as a councillor, where SOR is now a thing of the past in terms of its organisation, but the policies and the practical examples of what's happening in schools, the collaboration between the schools and the collaboration with Thomas Gainsborough School, all that is moving forward. And you talk to the teachers, you talk to the governors, you will say they are extremely happy with the way it's moving forward. They're not satisfied with all the standards. I would urge you, members of council, that in fact that you should reject this particular proposal. And please do not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Thank you. James and Councillor and Dow, please, from Haverhill in that case, from one extreme to the other.
Thank you, Chairman. You mentioned my favourite word, which is Haverhill. Much mention has been made of the town I wanted to represent, and you've just mentioned it again. And I'm very grateful and I'm very pleased for all those positive mentions. And I just wanted to tell the Chamber that an hour ago, possibly longer now, I bumped into Madeline Vigar, who is one of the brilliant and effective principals that we have in our town. And she told me that she is working 2 days a week with Suffolk County Council to improve educational outcomes. And all I can say is if we are working with someone with her skills and expertise, then I feel that we are absolutely on the right track.
That's fine. There's now 2 more speakers, please. The first one is County Councillor Mark Bean, and then just finish off, it will be County Councillor Sandy Martin. Councillor Mark Bean.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can I say from the outset that this council, and indeed the people across this country, most certainly can have confidence in the current political leadership on education in Suffolk. In fact, Mr. Chairman, rarely has there been such clarity of vision, determination and purpose than there is now. And Mr. Chairman, we will not take lectures from the Labour group. who have ducked the whole issue of school organisational review year after year after year and allowed children to languish in schools and to try and run two education systems in Suffolk instead of the way we have tried to simplify things with one. They have done nothing but rubbish the Raising the Bar initiative without coming up with any new ideas, Mr. Chairman. And we have a motion here which has a split infinitive in the middle of it. How, Mr. Chairman, can we take education seriously from the Labour Group? What I don't want to see, Mr. Chairman, is policies driven by the last press release that the Labour Group come up with. We do not want education to be, as has already been said, the political point scoring, the political football, as we have heard from the opposition. That is not the way that we do things here. And in fact, as Councillor Ereira said, he was saying about low morale and the NUT. In fact, the NUT, at a recent meeting of the staff partnership, said they would work with us. Excellent. And wanted to support Raising the Bar. Good. Let's hope in doing that, they abandon their strike next week. We have good teachers here in Suffolk, and that's why the Raising the Bar Awards on the 27th of March will recognise outstanding heads, teachers and governors. It's all about raising standards in Suffolk. That's what it's all about. Because it is our group, the Conservative group, that has shown political leadership, that has made education our top priority, that set up Raising the Bar, and which is working closely with our excellent director and head teachers, governors, parents, employers and others to do everything in our collective power to drive up attainment. And as Councillor Kemp indicated, he would like a sort of cross-party think tank. Well, one of the things that I brought forward last May was policy development panels. There is an education policy development panel, and we'd like to hear your ideas if you want to come to that. And of course, I set up the Education Scrutiny Committee, which is chaired by Councillor Story. Opportunities for all members across the political divide to be involved in the educational issues. But it is our leadership, our political leadership, that has introduced the much-needed school organisation review, something which Labour shamefully dubbed when they were in power, which is now reaping rewards. And I want to spend some time going through what those figures are, so that people can be very clear about them. Just look at how Key Stage 2 results have improved over the last 2 years. Results are up across Suffolk. But while areas not covered by SOR saw the number of pupils achieving level 4 in reading rise by 1.6%, in SOR areas it has doubled that. For writing, the increase was 10% in non-SOR areas, but 16% in SOR areas. In maths, it was 2.1% outside SOR and 7.9% improvement in SOR. SOR is working across Suffolk, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, SOR is working. Children across Suffolk are reaping these benefits. Well, Mr. Chairman, last May I announced that such an important thing as education needed to have that political stand. And that's why I was delighted that my colleague, Deputy Leader, Lisa Chambers, took that role. The message is clear, Mr. Chairman. We mean business on education. So clear was that message that it was recognised by Ofsted in their report, which stressed the determined and ambitious political leadership for education in Suffolk. Now as then, Lisa and I are united in our determination to do everything in our power to drive up attainment in Suffolk. But ultimately, it is head teachers and governors who are responsible for standards in schools. Now we've heard about the Learning and Improvement Service and the importance of that. Lisa has said our new school improvement strategy will be out at the end of the month and it will have a 4-year plan to help drive up standards across Suffolk. And the money will be there in order to do that as well.
Sorry, you're not getting me. I'm afraid we can't end your...
Coming to the end, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we have a plan. More than that, we have a mission, a clear set of objectives, the senior officers in place to help in our work, and with Lisa Chambers here, we have the absolute best person to lead on education. Yes, the job of the opposition is to oppose. We understand that. But the job of the Conservatives is to lead. And with or without our support, that is what we will do.
Councillor Ross, that's the President. Motion is now your privilege to wind up the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a long discussion about how this motion should be worded. We deliberately chose not to personalise this motion because we do not want to lay any blame on any one person. And we are certainly not putting forward a motion against the children of this county. I think we got the motion right, and it was Councillor Gordon-Jones's intervention which convinced me that we got the motion right. He mentioned that Labour insists on spending money. Well, yes, we do, when we can see that it is something worth spending the money on. In 1993, when the administration of this county changed, the Labour Party, the Labour group, with the support of the Liberal Democrat group, made a conscious decision that it made more sense to spend money on the schools than spending money on the roads leading up to the schools. And our attitude to education has not changed since then. It is more important, as far as you're concerned, given the budget debate that we had just a few weeks ago, to squirrel away £156 million in reserves than to invest in the future of our children. You are going to have to decide. We want you to decide. We want you to do the right thing so that education does improve. And it is outrageous to be blamed or accused of playing party politics. What is the point of having democracy at all if we're not allowed to raise the most important issue facing our county? Now, we're told umpteen times that education is actually improving now. Last year, on the Key Stage 2 results, we rose from third from the bottom to sixth from the bottom. At that rate of improvement, we will take 50 years to get back to the top 10. Will we then offer a second go at primary education for all those 55-year-olds who have been failed the first time round? And why is Key Stage 2 so important? Why are those results so important? We're talking about 11-year-olds at Key Stage 2. By that stage, a lot of the damage has been done if they have not had a decent education. The younger the children, the more susceptible they are to the quality of the education they're offered. But also, at that age, it is fairly quick to show any evidence of any improvement. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but I don't call raising 3 places from 148th to 145th evidence of significant improvement. Councillor Chambers told Councillor Oppen earlier on today that she was not listening to my answers. No, Councillor Chambers, it is you who is not listening. We don't need more words. We don't need more conferences or reviews. We need actions. And we need a political leadership that will drive those actions and find sufficient funding for those actions. We think it's time for you to recognise that this is by far the most important issue facing Suffolk. It is no longer tenable for you to fondly hope that things will just get better of their own accord and that the whole administration must now do whatever it takes to turn the education service in this county around.
Well, that concludes the debate, and I think it was a lively and well-argued debate. Thank you so much for that. We're now opportunity now to vote on the motion, proposed by Councillor Martin, and seconded. Those who are in favour of the motion, the items to vote number 2. Against it, vote number 3. Not to abstain, that's number 4. We're ready to carry the vote. We're now ready to take part in the vote. Will you please now vote? Have you now all voted? Yeah. Close the vote. Could I have the results, please? I'm able to announce the result of the motion was 27 in favour, 39 against, and there was 1 abstention. Thank you for debating.
Okay.
It is now 5:36. We still have some business to attend, which may take a wee while. But do you want to carry on? That's fine. In that case, then we'll just collect our thoughts. Just a few seconds, and then we'll start the next motion.
Council marking is actually Councillor's item. So, I'd like to invite Dr. Alan Noah, Chair of the panel, to introduce the panel's report.
Thank you, thank you, Chairman. The report of the Independent Remuneration Panel is, I trust, quite clear and explanatory of the way the panel works. I would call your attention to all of paragraph 8 in the report. Apologies. I would call all your attention to all of the paragraph 8, and particularly the 50% public service discount. We recommend a 1% increase in the basic allowance, in line with the pay rise recently received by the local government staff. The annual indexation is dropped, and there should be further increase in allowances. There should be no further increase in allowances for the 4 years duration of the scheme. We have added 1 special responsibility allowance for the Health and Wellbeing Board Chairman, and suggested backdated to the 23rd of May 2013. In paragraph 11, we highlight the lower level of allowance for the independent members of the Permanence and Fostering Panel. We believe these important independent members should be given an allowance that reflects that of councillors on that panel. In recommending a reduction in the level of SRAs for opposition spokespersons, we listened to a well-argued presentation and concluded that the SRA be set at 0.3 of the basic allowance, and that this is fair and proper and compared well with other county councils. Equally, we were presented with evidence of the workload of the assistant cabinet members increasing, particularly with the introduction of policy development panels. Hence, there is a rise in the SRA for these to 0.5 of the basic allowance. In paragraph 21, we again ask that there should be role description for councillors with special responsibilities. It would make the work of the panel much easier. Our thanks in paragraph 23 to the officers who assisted us is sincere. Finally, the work of the Independent Remuneration Panel is clearly set out in the appropriate statutory instrument, regulations dated 2003. It would seem that a centrally set allowances would be more equitable. In the considerable experience of all the members of the panel, each authority has too much individuality in the way it works to make a national settlement feasible. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. There's not really an awful lot that I can add to this report, because clearly this has been a report of the Independent Remuneration Panel. As you will see from the report, our current Members Allowance scheme expires on the 31st of March this year, and that the panel has convened in due time to review the current scheme and to come up with recommendations. I'd like to thank them on behalf of the Council for the work that they did. I know that this report is late coming because they took back the opportunity to take fresh evidence, particularly from the opposition front bench group, and I think that was appreciated in taking that additional evidence. One thing that I would like to recommend to Council is that it takes each of the recommendations that you see on page 55, under section 3 there, A to H. We take each of those individually, if members so wish. And I'd also like to make it clear that I have, in discussions within my own group, agreed that we will be having a free vote on this. So there is no particular group whip on this. We feel it inappropriate because it is up to members to decide what level of remuneration and what the responsibility allowances should be, rather than being a party political issue. And therefore, Mr. Chairman, I do move the recommendation and I do look for a second.
Yes, you have a second round. Yes, Councillor Wood, are you going to speak now?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm pleased to second this motion. I would also like to add my thanks to the hard work Dr. Lower and his team have done. It's always very difficult when a paper such as this comes to the chamber, because although it's an independent panel which looked at it, we have the final say and we have to vote on our own allowances, which I find increasingly frustrating and wish something else would be put in place. But saying that, I've no hesitation in supporting the recommendations on this, but I do question the level of allowance one receives nowadays when you think of the work one has to undertake, being a councillor. And I think most of us in this chamber, if you look around, are quite lucky. Pension and some other forms of financial support. What frustrates me and what worries me is what's going to happen in the future. Where are we going to get the young councillors from? Where are we going to get those to take our places? Because the financial commitments nowadays are bringing up a family and perhaps wanting to serve your public, and to do something like this is really, really tough. Which is why I wish local government would look at the allowances and stop being flippant with remarks that, it's like running a skate group and all that. Let's be serious about this. I think really it would be nice for government to look at this and take over and have a real good look at it, because they talk about all forms of government, and it's very important that all forms of government are represented by everybody, and I think the allowances one does receive really puts off a lot of people from all different walks of life becoming a councillor. That's the effort over. Thanks very much for the work we've done, and I'm happy to support these recommendations.
Thank you very much. Can I just draw your attention to alternative options, please, number 6. There is an alternative that we can offer to you. Extend the current scheme beyond March 2014. It's indeed an option for you. It is indeed my intention to take the motion as a forest president, A to H individual. Councillor David Wilson, I think, is the next speaker, wants to speak. Then after that, Andrew Stringer. And then Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to pick up on the point that Dr. Lower emphasised at page 62, number 21, where the panel writes, "We wish to repeat our concerns that the Council has not yet formulated role descriptions for councillors with special responsibilities. This has made our job of assessing appropriate levels of remuneration more difficult." I think we should heed that and do something about it so that there is a job descriptions for people with special responsibilities. Now, I was one of the 10 councillors who responded to requests for comments, and I did so back in September, and I didn't make any comments about special responsibilities because I hadn't got enough information to make it, so I share Dr. Lower's concerns there. I also share David Wood's concerns about the fact that we're voting on our own pay. And I've been at the borough since 2003. I've never voted on the allowances. I always abstain, and I'll be abstaining today. However, I do want to make some comments on other parts of the report. David would mention young people standing. Well, I first got elected to the Borough Council at the age of 58, and to the County Council at the age of 68 at the 6th of 10th. So I'm not particularly bothered about people's age. It's their abilities that I'm concerned about, not their age. I don't necessarily think younger people should or should not be here. I just take them on their merit. However, I did most of my contributions were about the item number 17 here, which Dr. Lauer and his panel have written this. We would encourage, wherever feasible, that councils consider using public transport. The council's aspiration to be the greenest county requires everyone to play their part to make this a reality. Councillors, as community leaders, have the power to not only take this message to their communities, but to themselves demonstrate that public transport can be a viable alternative to the car. This would also assist in reducing the overall cost of the council's mileage bill and its carbon footprint. Yes, well, I could have put it better myself. I do accept that some members of this council are reliant on the car because they have to be to get from where they are to here. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have allowances for car travel. However, currently the budget for this year we're in now is £75,550. For travelling by rail, it's £2,000. And I would like to see that change over the years. I don't know who's going to take that forward, but I'll send in my submission to Colin Noble shortly. But I would like to see that reduced and the rail travel increase. But apart from that, I think it's an excellent report, except for the principle that I'm not going to vote about my own pay. Thank you.
Okay, Andrew Singer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to qualify myself as one of those younger councillors. I'll be 50 this August, so, but buy now while shops last, that's what I say. Do a bit for the local economy. So, I mean, and no one actually ever gets in this for the money. My bank manager will certainly attest to that, as the rest of my family will. Having said that, if you want to represent people and carry through some of your philosophy, sometimes you have to make sacrifices. One of the other things I did promise to get when I became councillor is I would never ever vote for my own allowance. I think it's abhorrent. We shouldn't be doing it. And actually, we have the opportunity to put a stop to that today, which will I'll put forward an amendment that will extend the current scheme until May 2017. Because that would mean the outgoing council would vote for the allowances of the incoming council, and then forevermore this council will not put councillors in the dreadful position of voting, as it were, for your own pay rise.
So, do you have a second of your motion?
Yeah.
Second. Is that motion to extend beyond March 2014 accepted by the proposer of the motion?
I'm quite happy if members want to have a debate about it. If they want to do that, that is fine. I can't really see where we're going to go with that, because you have an independent panel that comes up here.
Do you accept the amendments to your motion or not? No. Do you want to speak to your amendment then, Councillor String?
Yes, it does give us the golden opportunity. I realise it's not a perfect science, and I don't want to tread on any of the work of the independent panel, because I think their work is brilliant. But we get this every single time, and I think it does our democracy in Parliament great damage. When MPs vote for their own wrongs here and there, I think it does democracy itself in Suffolk real damage. We could put an end to it right now, so it never happens again. It means that the independent panel's recommendations can be tidied up again in a few years' time, or re-looked at again. It just means we'll not get in this silly cycle of us being put in a dreadful position where I can then honestly look at my electorate in the eye.
Anybody else want to speak to the amendment? No. In that case, I put the amendments to the vote. Those forgive me. Second one to speak, David. I apologise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I think Councillor String has come up with a fairly good solution here. That I appreciate what they said across the other side, that I've been voting on something that's the one I'm going to vote on. But this is the vote to take out the vote, if you like. So I think I'm justified in doing that. I hope you understand the logic there, Colin. But I think it's a good idea. I think it's embarrassing to actually vote about how much money I'm going to get. I don't want to do it. I'm not doing it in the borough, and I'm not going to do it now. Thank you.
Councillor B, you have the right to speak now on the amendment.
I think it would just be simpler if members just went to the vote on this one.
In that case, then, I now proceed to vote. Those in favour of the amendment, number 2, against 3, and 4 is abstained. Even votes. Those in favour of the amendment is 2. 3, only one light. Hold on, please.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Point of order.
Can I request you all press 1, please, to show your presence? Okay. Everyone able to vote? Yeah. Right, there was someone raised a point of order, I think, in the corner. Is that right? No? Are we okay? No?
Okay now.
Right, okay. Now, in favour of the amendment is 2, against is 3, abstain is 4. Could you please now vote?
Two votes.
Have all those who want to vote voted? Those are ballots, those are votes. What is the result, please? Okay, the result of that was 10 were in favour of the amendment, 36 against, and 15 abstentions. The amendment is passed. Bring it back to substantive motion. And I have the request from Sandy Martin next to speak.
Yeah, I'll be incredibly brief, Mr. Chairman. We've always maintained that it's wrong for members to have to vote on their own allowances. We've maintained that in public, and we've maintained that when we've spoken to other members of other parties, and we will be maintaining that position for every single part of the vote here today as well.
Okay. Councillor Mumford, please, your speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Irrespective of agreements or lack of, irrespective of political affiliations, I'm frequently impressed by the commitment and the dedication of you, basically, my fellow councillors. In recognition of this, we've paid an allowance. I don't know of a single councillor for whom this allowance was the motivation in seeking public office. We now have the prospect of a small increase in this allowance, and with or without this, I suspect that many of you work hours for a remuneration which is way below minimum wage. I do agree with Councillor Nettleton. He sent around an email saying that it is wrong for us to be voting on our own pay. I see the recommendations of the independent review, which is the nearest we can get to the public deciding what they think we should be paid, rather than us deciding what we should pay ourselves. So in recognition of this, I don't think we should be voting on this. However, it's important that this allowance that we receive is adequate. I don't go along with the hair shirt politics, the gesture politics that would just deprive ourselves. Mention has been made of new councillors, younger councillors coming into this, and it's important that we don't close the door on that. There are many here who have fine pensions, but it is the very reason that at national and local level that we were paid this allowance in the first place, to keep the door open to ordinary working people. I don't believe that this should be hobby politics for people on fine pensions, or just reserved for the sons and daughters of rich farmers. So I think we should go the recommendations.
Who's a rich farmer?
Thank you. Read the files, next speaker, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will also be brief. I find it voting on any increase. I do welcome paragraph 21, again about the role and description of councillors, and obviously if we're going to have a description of those with special responsibilities, it will prepare us for 2017, so we know what we're going to do. But also, the issue of transport, that is something close to my heart. As you well know, I have a responsibility as a Coast Guard officer, and I'm afraid if the bleed goes, I will be out here like a shot in my car back to Ipswich. I cannot rely on public transport to get me back to my job, so I apologise in advance for that. Thirdly, explain to the public exactly what councillors do. Yes, please, because we don't do cats up trees. Thank you.
And there's Mark Ereira still here. Mark, it's your lecture.
Oh, that's so nice, isn't it? Oh, look, you obviously miss me when I go. That's so nice.
When you go to Brussels.
Oh, thanks, Joanne. I'll do my best. I just like to pick up on actually what Bill's saying about, how do we ensure that ordinary working people are able to be councillors, and younger people that David was talking about earlier. And I was reflecting on this because people say, I'm always hopping off out of meetings. But I run a business. I mean, I'm doing 45, 50 hours a week running my business. And I want to be a councillor. But, there is a limit to how many hours we all can do on our council work in a week. Most of my work, is done at a local level, and I know we're all doing emails and emails. How do you approximate the hours that you do? 20, 25, 30, it depends. Obviously, not that many in all. That's so many in August. But I think you're right, Bill. We are all working very hard, and we enjoy the public duty of working very hard. And actually, I think that this is a fair report. It's an independent report. I think, colleague, I didn't make any contribution to it. I just thought, let them make an independent assessment. It's a fair report. I think it's right that people get their special responsibility allowances on both sides. I think you work very hard for the money that you're getting, and I think that's full credit to you. So I think it's a good report. Slightly disagree with my colleagues here about abstaining and not voting. I think it's a bit not quite for me, really. I mean, we're here right now to make a decision. We've got an independent report in front of us. We can vote against it, or we can vote for it, and I shall be voting for it. I would like to see going forward that there were fewer councillors across Suffolk, because we would have unitary local government. Because I think there are, and we could look at cutting council allowances overall in terms of the cost to the council taxpayer. But I think it's a good report. But I do think we need to give more thought about how we can ensure that there are people that work, run their own businesses, young people. Andrew's nearly 50. I'm 52. Possibly some of the youngest. No, I mean, there's obviously Sarah. Sarah's. There are younger people. Younger. But I think the serious point is we do need to ensure that younger people come forward and are able to do it in the context of their work and their careers.
Very good. Thank you so much. And the next one is Peter Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, this comes forward, every 4 or 5 years. We've done set up councils over the years where we've had to make decisions on our own allowances. And I agree with most members here that perhaps some other authority or somebody else should do that. The nearest we've got to that at the moment is the independent panel. I personally feel it's too little too late. I feel that it doesn't reflect the amount of work that councillors put into it and do. If we want younger people, and I've always argued this, Mr. Chairman, and I've always voted for the increases, and I'll continue to do so, because we need to get younger blood in, younger people. They cannot afford to give up the time in work if they're in employment. If they do manage to get time off in work, usually they'll have to take it and not get paid. And then if there's promotions, opportunities come along in that company or firm, they don't get them because they're not there, they're here. And they really can't afford it. I remember a young Labour councillor in Hadley who served quite well on the district council, had to give up because his mortgage was £700 a month. And this is about 4 years ago. And he was very good and we lost him. And, that's just across the board. We lose them on all sides of the chamber. I think it's disgraceful when members say they're going to abstain on something like this, because you could vote for it, for those young people, but you could refuse to take the increase. Anybody that feels that they don't need it, don't take it. I don't have a problem with that. Certainly don't deprive new people that we want to get in, getting a fair return. And I'd say to the independent panel, we shouldn't have to wait another 4 years to get an increase. We need to get to a better position than what we are, because we just get left behind. And that's the bottom line. We get left behind, and then there's a big gap to fill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Peter. And then Brian Martin, the next speaker, then Joanna Spicer, and then I think that's the end of the debate. Councillor Ryan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to echo Peter's point, that my colleagues opposite are, going to abstain. Is that really going to abstain from taking the extra allowances? Or is it a case that, we'll have to do this dirty work for them, and that's it? If you're not abstaining, abstain from it all. Don't take the money.
Chairman, just a few very small points. It's good to thank the independent panel, if I could. It's nice to see former Councillor Lower, former Chairman of the County Council indeed, back with us. And thank you for your work, because I know how much care you put into this. He's wrong on one thing he might not know about, and that's encouraging us to travel by train. Because with this new business of having to be taxed on our travel, I've just discovered that if I tootle to Stowmarket Station and buy my second-class day return to London costing £50 or £60, I'm going to be taxed on that, which is a fine, as far as I'm concerned, for using the train. Okay? So we might have to look into that. I get rather amused by all this talk about young people, because actually I don't see it as such a big deal. There's plenty of young people here today on both sides and former younger members. I wasn't a young member once. I was a young member, not nearly as young as people like Becky were when she was elected. And I'm coming up to my silver anniversary in 6 weeks' time. On the 2nd of May, I'll have done 25 years. Do you know, my first year I took home just over £500, and I spent a lot more than that on childcare, because there was never any question of childcare allowances then. We were paid by the hour, and it was called an attendance allowance, and that was it. So don't think that money would have made any difference. You're still stuck with me now. Chairman, you've indicated that you're going to take us through 8 separate votes, which I expect fills most of us with some alarm. And so 3 or 4 of those affect individuals. I've got a feeling that 3 only currently affects me. I noticed that the East Anglian, in terms of the chairman of the East Anglian Daily Times, the chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board, said currently Joanna Spicer. So they probably know something which I want to know. However, just to be clear of a somewhat more personal nature, in case you think I'm going home with a lovely holiday pot to go travelling, I have in fact been paid another allowance over the last year, so the difference is only quite small, but it is setting it up for the future. This paper doesn't say much about the Health and Wellbeing Board, and indeed I haven't been given a chance to talk to all of you that much about the Health and Wellbeing Board. I think it is appropriate looking at other councils, but I will, Chairman, abstain on item 3.
Okay, Sora, and then finally the key patients. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a paper that for the last 2 times it's been presented. I've actually presented it in the place of Councillor B. And I think the arguments are probably always the same. I do remember that the first time I did this, which was in 2006, we had some discussion about the allowances for the opposition parties, and there had, up until that stage, been a set allowance. And one of my suggestions to the panel was that it should be based on the number of members within a particular group, because it did strike me that it was there was a possibility that we would have a number of different political groups. At
at the time we really only had Labour and Conservative and a few Liberals, but you know there was that option.
Those are the days.
And there was some tears at the time, I seem to remember, but Sue Sider and I stood very firmly at Jeremy's side and said, no, we're going to go this way. The first vote, I seem to remember, there were some people who said, oh no, we don't want this. They voted against, but when I checked later with HR, they had actually there were only two that didn't take the new allowance. So I think it is worth bearing in mind that we do have a duty, if we vote for this, that we take it, and maybe it's up to your conscience if you don't. I certainly will be voting for it.
And then keep patient next week.
Thank you. If I go offer a bit of advice, and it's that being correct here, if you travel outside Suffolk on your duties, you get democratic services to buy your ticket, you don't have to pay
Yeah.
Who's going to answer that question? Very good. Okay, that's fine. So fine, the wind up. Mark, you've got to respond.
Will, I'll be very brief. Councillor Ereira-Guyer, I'm afraid you can't claim treble time for being here this late. I see nothing in that. It's good to see you stay the course. Mr. Chairman, we have an independent remuneration panel which has presented this report. And yes, there may be things that people feel uncomfortable about. But I think the important thing is to actually have the courage to decide what you're going to do and not actually abstain on it. Because I think that actually trying to absolve yourself of responsibility and wait for some sort of white shining night come over the horizon that talks about a new system. Now, I mean, the trouble with the new system, as the MPs have found with IPSA, is that the IPSA came up with this huge increase for MPs, which was politically embarrassing for them. But the rules said, if IPSA came up with it, they had to take it, whether they wanted it or whether they didn't. And that is the argument against absolving responsibility and giving it to somebody else. Because somebody else is, in effect, spending money out of your budget. The compromise we have is an independent panel of people who have experience of local government, who look at what we do, take soundings from us, and come up with a report. We've had a debate on this afternoon. They have come up with the recommendations, and I think the principle of an increase, even if it is small, is important that it is that. And that is why I will be voting in favour of this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now ready to move to, as I say, proposing to take them vote by vote. You do not have to press button 1, so do not press button 1. So it's quite straightforward. In favour of it, 2, against 3, abstain 4. So I'll now take 3A. Those in favour, please press 2, against 3, abstain 4. Would you please vote now? Has everyone voted who wants to vote? I close the vote. What is the result, please? I'm able to announce that's carried by 40 in favour, 6 against, 14 abstentions. Now move on to the next vote, which is 3B, removal of the annual inflation index. Again, in favour of that 2, against 3, abstain 4. Could you please now vote? Have all those voted who want to vote? In that case, I close the ballot. The vote on that is 32 in favour, 12 against, and 12 abstentions. I'm so sorry, 17 abstentions.
Are you kids doing? Are you kids doing? They're abstaining, they're really weird.
We're now moving to number C, 3C. Again, those in favour, 2 against, 3, 4 abstain. Would you please vote now? All those voting who want to vote? Close the ballot. Thank you. Forty in favour, 3 against, 17 abstentions. Those in favour?
No, I didn't have any.
2 against, 3 abstain 4. Could you please now vote?
What's abstaining for me?
All those voting want to vote, is that true? Right, close the ballot. Results, please.
Said abstain on that one doesn't mean you've been tried. He's abstaining. You don't.
Results are 41 in favour, 4 against, 15 abstentions. Moving on to 3E. Again, in favour 2, against 3, abstain 4. Could you please now vote? All those voting who want to vote? Yes. Close the ballot. Results, please.
Bingo, isn't it?
That's 38 in favour, 6 against, 17 abstentions. Moving on to E, please. So sorry, F. Again, 2 in favour, 3 against, 4 abstentions. Could you please now vote?
The whole report there. I vote yes for G.
All those voting who want to vote? Thank you. Close the ballot.
I can't get it. It's impossible to get. No, I can vote against that. I vote for it.
That's 38 in favour, 6 against, 17 abstentions.
Done it.
The next one is G. Again, in favour 2, against 3, 4 abstain. Could you please now vote? Are we all done?
Yes, which side?
40 in favour, 5 against, 16 abstentions. And finally, increase the amounts payable for hotel accommodation. So, those in favour of that, please vote. 2 against, 3 abstain. Please now vote.
That's tonight we carry on like this. Good for you.
All those voting who want to vote, against the opposed ballot, result please. Yeah. That was 40 in favour, 6 against, 15 abstentions. Thank you very much.
That was wrong, wasn't it?
Okay, can we now move on please to agenda item number 10?
Thank you, Alan.
Pay statement.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, this afternoon a new pay policy statement is presented to Council for approval. This is our third pay policy statement. We approve one each year. Many of you will be familiar with the process and the content. As a recap, the pay policy mainly focuses on the remuneration of chief officers, their relationship to pay levels to the lowest pay, and outlines some key points in relation to the full workforce. I'd like to draw your attention to some key aspects of this year's statement and just focus on what is different from previous years. The new pay ratio is 1 to 6. This means that the chief executive earns 6 times more than the council's median earner. The standard comparison we are asked to make. The ratio has reduced from 1 to 8 to 1 to 7 over the last 2 years, and and is now lower still at the 1 to 6 level. Some changes to the rules around the re-engagement after staff have left the council with any sort of payment such as redundancy. For example, there will be no consideration of redeployment of senior staff. Within the last 6 months, we have secured a new collective agreement with Unison. This includes a series of new arrangements, which include the implementation of the living wage, the freezing of pay at current spinal points until 2017-18, in support of a savings target of 156 million over the next 4 years. This is separate to any annual national cost of living rise, which is agreed externally. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to move the recommendation, which is contained in the report, agenda item number 10, which members will find on page 77, and I go to 87.
Do you have a second, Councillor?
I'll second it, and I'll speak now in favour.
Very good, Chair. That is very good. Right, officers, first one, who's that? Councillor?
Mr. Chairman, we thank the officers for a comprehensive and detailed report. This side of the chamber fully support the approval of this report. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers who wish to speak? In that case, then, can we move to the vote in item 6? Sorry? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a question really on detail, bearing in mind the announcements yesterday by the Chancellor about pensions and being able to cash in early. Will that be bearing on the pension scheme that the Suffolk operates? In other words, do we need to know the any parts of this again? Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Mark, will answer that one.
My understanding is that it won't, but even if we did, we'd have to go through consultation on that. It would be a matter for the staff partnership board to discuss. So if we do come on with that, it will be an agenda item with you and various unions as well. Thank you.
Very good, thanks for that. Can I suggest we take as far as show of hands and acceptable? All those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Ms. Councillor, are you abstaining or voting?
I'm just against.
You're voting against? Yeah. We now move on to agenda item number 11, report of the Constitutional Working Party. I keep this against the hands of Councillor Martin.
Right, Mr. Chairman, we are on a roll now, so I will not hold that up. The Constitutional Working Party met on the 11th of February, and you'll see I'm writing 3 of our members who were present at that time. 2 recommendations for Council to agree, hopefully this afternoon. The first one is about the establishment of a Suffolk County Council shareholder group and a group holding company for both EFMS and Concertus, as referred to in paragraph 19 and appendix 1 of the report. The second recommendation is the proposal that each chairman of a policy development panel is encouraged to seek input from group leaders and other councillors where they have a contribution to make for a specific expertise without the need to increase the membership of the panel. Now, if I can just very, very, very briefly speak on that one, the whole intention of that was we don't want to use the political balance on the policy development panels because those panels will become too big and unwieldy. So instead there is an open invitation for whichever member feels that they have an expertise to contribute to be involved in those policy development. That was the spirit and the intent of that Constitutional Working Party. I move the recommendations.
You've had a second, I think, Councillor Smith.
I have to second it for the only reason that I had to be in the building on the day of the Constitutional Working Party was asked to substitute at that meeting at the very last moment, so I was there and I do know a little bit about what the case says.
Okay.
Yeah, just very briefly, Chairman. I was at the Constitutional Working Party, I believe. However, I was not myself massively well informed about the situation with the FMS and Concertus, having neither been involved with neither of those organisations. This group has discussed this since then. We are perfectly happy to support item 4B, but we would like to have a separate vote for 4A and 4B, as in hindsight, it's actually
Right, so yes, Councillor Jones. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to elaborate on what Councillor Hodgins has said. And the reason we did this was, I saw the PDP discuss this moving forward and approved it. And I thought it was a good idea. But it was a comment made by Councillor Belcher that actually made me stop and think. And then I went back and did some research into Tech-Al and looked at some of the implications of that. And while as a council would be fully in accordance with the Tech-Al regulations, it would seem that the further we remove the independent companies away from council control, the less clarity there is with regard to the Tech-Al exemptions. Now, I know the long-term policy of the administration is at some point to go out to private enterprise, but in the short term, we have the responsibility to look to the policy of the council. Now, I'm not asking that we abandon this. I'm just asking that can we go back to review? Because I think in the alternative options, the working party reconsider and ask that we include on each board, Concertus and on EFMS, one single Suffolk County Council councillor as an executive director. The other advantage of doing this, of course, is that we as Suffolk County Council do actually, at ground level, at night point, actually see what's going on in these two companies, which are our responsibility. This is not a political move. I fully understand that probably the one council that will be on there probably wouldn't be from my side of the party, the chamber. However, I really think we ought to have some democratic, not control, but overview of this particular. So I ask that we send it back for review.
It is usual to have that done, isn't it? I mean, we just don't do these things on a whim. So, if the leader is prepared to accept that, if he's taken back, I propose not take a vote on 4A.
Mr. Chairman, this is my usual practice that if there are the need for further discussion, then I would suggest that it's sent back. My only thing is, Chairman didn't say that at the time. Well, there we go. We will be generous and you can bring it back. But I just want to be clear that it isn't going to hold up anything by doing that. And I think we just may need to hear from perhaps Councillor Goodwin, Chairman, if you would be so kind, just to hear his view.
Give us your Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Lee. I stayed away from the policy development panel because I thought about being there. What my views. One or two things I do disagree with in the paper effective scrutiny. Like what we say, extremely well. Then we must not accept third party from the FMS. We do it alone. Both the FMS and the Circus are companies of the County Council. Yes, they are. They Suffolk County Council appointed 3 directors to the FMS. And I have to say, and I again with Len when I say this, we have got a really excellent board there. And Len brings with him business experience, shop steward experience, and his own business experience, and it works really, really well. I would be very upset to see that control. And certainly haven't got any elected members on it, and I really personally think they should. It's whether we have a super board or not, I think it's a moot point. Perhaps a shareholder, which is confidential, should and have that overarching thing. But I certainly think, as we are at the moment, I think the FMS board are pleased to stay. And Jim, although he's not here, he also is extremely good. We are at the moment with the company difficulties, most of you will be aware, we're a disparate bunch of 5 or 6
branches of the council club together. We've got to have this incredibly expensive consultant in, sorting out what we're going to do, and I think we need to finish the Republic Park. And it will be a much better legal organisation for it. So I really think and plead with you to perhaps put it back, but to keep the current board of members as it is and keep on with reconstruction.
Thanks, John. Okay, in that case, I propose not to take our vote on 4A. Can I move on to a vote, please, on 4B? Show of hands, I think, is appropriate. Again, all those in favour? Anybody against? Anybody? Councillor Ereira, are you abstaining or are you voting? I think, in fact, unless anyone got any ideas, that concludes the business of the day. Can I thank you for your attendance and wish you a safe journey home by train or by bus or bicycle or motorcycle. I close the meeting at